All right, everybody. What's up? This is Cypher 73. This is the Universal Dialect Show. Like, I got my words all mixed up because I got like an idol of mine on. So, I'm probably gonna, fumble over my words. But let me take a deep breath. All right. So here's this individual's repertoire. Okay. He is an MC, producer, artist, manager, record promoter, an archivist, journalist, DJ, radio show host, record label manager, and I consider him what you could call a hip hop cartographer because he helped connect a lot of like groups to myself and so many others. Please welcome my guest, Kevin Beacham. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, man. That was a great intro. I've done some things. I've done a few things.
Well, I mean, you probably don't know a lot about yourself until somebody, brings it up because you're involved in so many things. I first heard your name, or I first saw your name in so many message boards. And this was when I was like initially starting with Insomniac magazine, on my own. I started in '96, and I never wanted to follow like the trends of some of these other like I don't know, I guess you can call them, interviewers or whatever, where they were just going down the mainstream path. I always found myself going towards the underground. I mean, even with like with metal, because I'm a metalhead too. I'm a headbanger, So I never went for the mainstream groups because I couldn't relate to them. That was the main thing. I had to follow what I could relate to. And your name would always pop up in message boards. You were always there, and you were always, listen to this group, listen to that group. And then it would lead me down these paths, like hooking up with like, living legends in California, Mr. Journeyman and all them dudes, and Rhyme Sayers Entertainment. I remember actually having a conversation with Brent Sayers and then having some sort of relationship with him where I was doing reviews for some of their artists. So you're very instrumental in a lot of people's lives. You might not know it, and you're definitely instrumental in mine. So can you give me the origin story of Kevin Beacham, from where you were born, all the different places that you went to? Because I would imagine those had influences on you.
Yeah.
Okay, and just go from there, and your intro into hip hop.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up. My dad joined the army, or was drafted, I should say, drafted in the army like right before I was conceived, right after my parents got married. So like, I was being born in Germany, Frankfurt, Germany. Wow. We were living. He was stationed over there, and then I lived there till I was about 2 years old. We came back to the U.S., lived in Texas for a while, El Paso, Texas for a little bit, moved to Colorado Springs for a little bit. Then my dad got shipped off somewhere else to go, like, on his own, do some things. And so we were living in Galesburg, Illinois, where my mom is from. We stayed in Chicago for a little while. So then, like, after like a year and a half of that, I think we moved back to Germany. So I lived in Karlsruhe and Stuttgart, and that was like from like age 7 to like age 14. I would spend most of so when hip hop was being created and born, I was living in Germany all that time. And for a lot of people might think that's like a disadvantage, but I learned that was kind of an advantage. Bittersweet though, because of the time period, a lot of what was going on, a lot of the poverty was happening around the world. It's like Reaganomics and all these things were happening, and it was hit in New York hard. You hear all the stories about when hip hop was created, how like the Bronx was like sort of like this, like just
like a third world country, bro.
Third world country, yeah.
I lived there. I lived there, bro.
Yeah, so like it's like those stories. So like so because of that, a lot of those families were joining the military. So all the time on these bases in New York, I would just go like, every time there's a new student, I'd be like, where are you from? And they're from New York. What tapes you got? So once I learned hip hop, it was about that. And I learned that because my dad was the one that actually got my first rap record. He got sent to Indiana to do a training for the military. And while he was there, they played Rapper's Delight on the radio.
Oh shit.
He wrote, he would write letters to the family and have like section for like me, my sister, my mom, like a little section. And in my section, in one letter, he was like, heard this song on the radio. I'm gonna send you a tape. You're gonna like it. Something new you never heard before. And I'm like all excited. What's this new thing I never heard before? Because he knew I love music already.
How old were you then?
I was 9.
Wow. Okay.
I was 9 when he told me, and he ended up not sending me the tape, but he did he came home. He found the record. So he brought me the Rappers Delight 12-inch. And he brought it back for like, it was right around my 10th birthday. I was turning 10. And that was like, he came back around that time and gave it to me. So it was like new music. I was a fan of music. It was this new thing I never heard before. It was actually a sound that was from the youth. It was given to me on my birthday from my dad, who had, all these factors made it special to me. And I remember very specifically when I listened to it, I said out loud, I was by myself in the room, I'm pretty sure by myself. I said, I have to find everything that sounds like this.
It hit you like that?
Yeah. And so like, I went on that mission, like, and I'm pretty much still on that mission to some degree, but like, trying to find everything that sounded like that. And so like, it kind of from there, and then like, that was kind of like started my always trying to track down tapes and music from whoever. Like I was like the person out there, like, who has tapes, who has the newest music? I gotta have it. Always, I was so passionate about getting new music wherever I moved. So we left from Kansas. I mean, from Germany, we moved to Kansas, Fort Riley, Junction City, Kansas, and then we moved to North Chicago, Waukegan, Illinois, and that's where my dad retired. So that was the first time he lived somewhere for a long time, was in that area of Illinois near Chicago, and that's why I had that kind of like known for that Chicago scene. Because he retired there. I graduated high school there the same year, 88. I graduated high school. He retired in the military the same year. We had a joint celebration. Like, roses came in from both. That
right.
summer.
So how old were you in 88 when you
18. So I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have any aspirations of maybe joining the military like he did, or you already had other
Not
things?
at all. 0%.
Okay, I got you.
It was never even a question. I already knew that was not for me. Like my aspirations, if it wasn't music, I actually was thinking about going to acting school, and
I can see it.
Thank you. And then I also had everything, those tests you would take in school, like what are you best suited for?
Right.
Every single time it was like I should be a psychiatrist, a social worker. And it's funny, I saw it because I had an interest in it, but I didn't see myself doing that. But now I see how it relates to the work, like just like being able to talk to people and communicate. And it's like all those things like, like working with artists and being an artist manager or whatever, you're kind of like, gotta be like kind of like a social worker and be able to listen, be empathetic. And so I saw how those qualities were in me, but I could use them in other ways. But yeah,
that's awesome.
So that's kind of like it. From there, and all those things did play a big part, I think, in what influenced me, because like I was always moving away. I that helped me understand that like I just loved hip hop as a general thing. I didn't have this like connection to a hometown. Like I gotta like New York from hip hop from New York or from LA. Like it was just the music to me.
So it piqued your interest, and then that interest spread outwards instead of just staying concentrated in one area.
Right. I had no I had no reason to be like, I only like this kind of thing because I have a personal connection. My personal connection, I never had a hometown.
So you weren't attached to anything, essentially.
No, that's why I've been able to move around and not worry about it, and why I think it's why I've been able to move around and be flexible like that. It's why I've been able to be flexible and like embracing all kinds of cultures. And I would say that's the same. A lot of people in the military probably don't have that same experience. I'm just saying for me, that's why I think it influenced me. Yeah, the combination of those experiences and who I was born to be, I think ended up that thing.
Right. So you because of the military, essentially, is the reason why you got essentially connected to the hip hop culture. And what a lot of people don't know, and what doesn't really get talked about, I figure somebody has to do like a documentary on how the military helped hip hop, if you think about it, because I read an article years ago in a graffiti magazine, and it was this guy who, at that time, he was about 40 or 50 years old, but he was talking about how he was stationed overseas and he would bring hip hop over there. He would meet people from other states over there overseas, and they would form groups and everything, and that spread out. And then there's a documentary, I don't know if you're aware of, I think it's called Bombing, with Africa Bambaataa, where he goes over to England and he tries to start a Zulu Nation chapter over there. And it has to do with, you know who Goldie is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Goldie was.
Oh, I've heard about this. I haven't seen it yet.
Yes, you got to see that. So that's even more like emphasis on how hip hop like didn't just stay in, let's say, the tri-state area, or didn't just go over to the West Coast and stay on the West Coast. It like spread like wildfire right away, and it was already.
And there was like tours happening in the '80s in Europe that weren't even happening in the United States.
Right.
Because like I'm saying, like, and that was, I think, a big part of it was like the military. And like you hear different stories. I have like a list somewhere in all my research. I have a list of like different known artists who were part of the military. And people like, like I remember like in the Boogie Monsters, they rap about being on a military base in Alaska.
Yes.
I heard like, Two Live Crew. They were
was that Vex?
I believe that was Vex. Yeah.
Vex and his family probably, like
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So yeah, so like, like there's a handful of artists who like talk those stories about like, Ice-T was in the military, like, right. So like you hear these different stories, like all these, okay. And that there's a lot of like, connections. Like some of my first mentors were like military GIs. First it was like people who were just older than me. Like I was like in junior high. So like some of my first mentors were just like high school kids who came from New York.
So who took you under their wing? Do you know, do you remember or any stories?
Oh yeah, for sure. And so I first heard about hip hop in like late '79, then got a record in 1980. And then I don't really remember knowing anyone locally doing it except for popping, like dancing, but no one else I knew rapping quite for a while. But then there was these two dudes, 81, when we were in Stuttgart, McKinley Thompson and Mike Young.
Shout out
McKinley Thompson and Mike Young. It was dope because McKinley Thompson, one of the first MCs I knew in person, his first two letters of his name are MC. And that was his rap name. That was so like his name is MC because it was that was like so dope to me. Like so him they were like 6 years older than me. They would like, at the basketball games on the bleachers, they'd be sitting there together doing rap routines or walking home from school. I would see them come from, because I go from the middle school, they pick up from high school. I see them like, I run up, yo, kick a rhyme. And I was like their big fan. So they were always like, they were like, all right, come on, we'll rap for you. And like, then they would encourage me to rap. And so like, now later I learned they were doing actually rap lyrics from songs. They weren't doing their original lyrics. I didn't know.
They didn't tell you that though, right? Yeah.
That was kind of normal at the time. Even on records, people were doing other people. Like it was like people were doing stock rhymes. Right. So when I learned like they were doing this, there was a song I didn't know the name of it for years, like not till like the 90s, but I had it on tape. But it's The Sound of Brooklyn record, TSOB record from 1979, 1980. And I remember I always thought it was just called Platinum Studio because there's this hook that goes, Platinum Studio rocks the house. Platinum. So I was like, oh, their name must be Platinum. That's a dope name, Platinum Studio. I'll call them Platinum Studio because I didn't know what the group was called.
Hello. No, don't tell me the internet's down.
That evolution of that stuff like that. And then the next thing, this guy moved from New York, Steve White, aka Romeo.
Kevin, real quick.
Yeah.
There was a you froze for like probably maybe 30 seconds. Did you see me freeze? Okay, so you said that you found Platinum Studios dope. Yeah. And then that's where you kind of froze. So I'm sorry. If you can go back to that, I'm sorry.
I thought I was like, did I imagine that? I thought I was about to have I was like, okay, I don't want to act like I'm crazy. I'm seeing things.
No.
I didn't see it freeze. I just heard my voice come. I was like, did my voice just come after later? I was like, okay, so
it ain't you, brother. You're good, man.
I'm watching this TV show, Evil.
Oh, with the dude that played Luke Cage.
Yeah. And so like there's all kinds of like, I'm like, wait a minute, this show's wait a second.
Look, bro, nothing's moving behind you. You're good, bro.
Cool. I did have like a split second. I was like, wait a minute, am I in a dream right now?
Yeah. Just look out for me. If you see a demon behind me, just let me know.
No, I got you. But no, so Platinum Studio, and that's when I heard that song on a tape. Then I'm like, oh, okay, these guys are just doing other people's routines. And so I was like, okay. And that helped me just learn that like I can do that to learn how to just like, rhyme. I would rhyme along to every record.
Well, that's what MCs do anyway, or even artists in general. They'll copy their favorite artists and eventually create their own style.
Yes, exactly. And then there was another guy that moved to town, Steve White, aka Romeo. And he lived in the building right behind us. And he was from, I want to say he's from Queens. I know he's from New York. I always picture him from Queens, but I can't know for sure. And I try to find him for something, but his name is Steve White.
So I know. Good luck.
So that's been like nothing. But he was an MC, and he would tell me stories about. He was like right before his story was like right before he left New York. He was in a group that was about to sign a record deal and was going to put a record out. And I believe they were called like the high powered MCs, which is interesting because, Craig G, his older brother was part of a group called the High Powered MCs from Queens. I was like, always wondering that might be the same crew, but I've never been able to figure out if it's the same crew or not. I've asked Craig about it, but he didn't like know all the members' names. Like he's like, oh, this is like a big conglomerate of people. It's like maybe he was down some kind of way. So it's possible that Steve White might have been down with Craig G's older brother. It's like this weird possibility.
No, you're right, because I mean at that time also, like, they groups were formed, and they were formed not just domestically but internationally.
Yeah,
you never know.
So it was like, so he had this story about like, that's being part of this crew, and he knew I was passionate about it. And by then I had wrote my first rhyme when I met him.
Okay.
There was
And what year is this? I'm sorry, I want context. I need context.
This would have been 80. This has been like a few months after I heard that Rappers Delight. Like a few months later. Yeah.
So you just jump right into it then.
Yeah, basically, and it wasn't even like I planned it. It was like literally like not long after that, I was collecting more music. And I had got the Funky 4+1 More first single, Rapping and Rocking My House. That was like a song, it's like 14 minutes long or something like that. So my parents had a long mirror in their room, in their bedroom, in between their two closets. And I was in the mirror rapping along to that record. Just rapping along. I was a big fan of that record in general, but Shy Rock and Little Rodney C especially. And when they stopped rhyming, there was like a long instrumental break. Without even thinking, I just started rapping. Like I was so excited that when they stopped rapping, I couldn't. I just kept going.
Damn.
Improvised a few bars, and I was like, looking in the mirror, I'm like, I'm rapping. I was like kind of mind blown that I was like, that's how it started. Just 3 bars, maybe in the mirror, improvising to that song. And then from there, it was like even a few more months for the next thing, I think. We would go to the high school basketball games, and there was this player. I actually wrote a song about this, but there was a player. His name was Isaiah, kind of star player of the high school. And they would like do this chant in like people like do that stomp, like they do like we Will Rock You by Queen. Boom,
right.
Boom, boom. I didn't recognize it was Queen at first when they did it, but when I was like, yo, you can rap to this. When they were doing that. When I realized that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write a rhyme. So every time they did it, I didn't have a pen and paper. I would just like I would like, oh, they're doing it. I would think of lyrics. So by the end of that game, I had like 8 bars. I had like my first rhyme just doing it to that foot stomp at a basketball game. And that was like the first rhyme I actually wrote.
And did it have a title?
No, I don't have a title. I don't even remember anything from it. But I did it, and I told Romeo about it, Steve White.
Right.
And he's like, okay, I'm gonna help you out. So that next night, he went home that night, and the next day he came back to my apartment, my house, and he was like, I wrote a rhyme for you. And he wrote this rhyme. He's like, I'm not going to tell you how to say it. You learning how to say it is how you would develop your own style. I was like, okay.
So he was talking about like cadence and all that?
Yeah, he's like, okay. He's like, you got to figure out how to say it. He's like, I wrote it, but you got to figure out how to say it.
That's dope, man.
And like, so and it was like, well, I'm the C-double-O, the L-I-E, Coolie, it's me, rocking young ladies. It was like, straight up from that time period, Yeah. My name is Coolie, they call me Cool K. It was like this very typical for that time. They wrote this rhyme for me. And that was the first rhyme that I ever like said in public. Like I did, when I learned that one, I would say that at school to my friends. And so it was just like slow evolution of that, like doing that. And so Steve White was a big mentor for me. And then when I moved to Kansas, there was a different guy who was a DJ Pill, Anthony Pittman. And he was a different inspiration and mentor as a DJ, but just like in this everything. He had a drum machine. He had like, my first time seeing 2 turntables and a mixer was DJ Pill, like seeing it in person. So like I had those were like my 2 like main mentors, I would say.
That's dope. All right. So then so I guess after that in the future, you wind up becoming DJ Nicholas Scratch, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens between what you just told me and Nicholas Scratch? Like, is there anything important between that?
Yeah, as a DJ, it's funny. Like I always had an intrigue in DJing, but I just never fully dove into it. So like going back to DJ Pill, so the DJ Pill story is a great story because like it's like it's
go for it, brother.
It's one that like it's like it could have went a whole different way, but it didn't. Right. It worked out. But you always learn as a kid, don't go with strangers, don't talk to strangers, and like I'm 15 years old, so I'm a little older, but still, you got to be mindful, right?
Right.
Me and my friend, I think I'm 14 this time actually. I'm 14, and we're on the bus on the Fort Riley Army base going to the gym to basketball, and me and my friend Warren, we're in a group, the 3D crew. Where he's my rap partner, one of my rap partners in the 3D crew in Kansas, and we're on the bus, and there's a guy in front of us with records. I'm always looking for every rap song, right? So I gotta like, I see records, and I can see like Sunny View, Sugar Hill. I can see the labels. I'm like, enjoy. I'm like, okay, these are rap records. I've never seen this many rap records. And I'm just like looking over the seat of the bus. He can feel my energy and hear it. Finally, he's like, "Do you want to see the records?" I'm like, "Can I see the records?" And he's like, "Yeah." Dope, yeah. He gives me the records. I'm flipping through. I'm like, "What? A new Treacherous 3? What? A new? What is this?" I remember like he had what's that record he had in there?
Pick 'em, Markham.
he had certain records in there because this is like 84, 85. He had records in there. I was like, oh man, that I didn't know of, and some I was excited about. And he was like, yo, I'm from North Carolina. I'm a DJ. I go back east and get new records. I got a whole setup in my barracks. I got turntables, all that. Echo machine. I'm like, you got an echo chamber? Because that was echo chamber in the early 80s.
That's next level, man.
He's like, yeah, you want to come see it? And I'm like, shit. Yeah. my friend Warren's like, don't go with strangers. I'm like, yeah, I'm going with strangers today.
Yeah. Something's calling me, man.
But but the thing was like, it's in the Army barracks. It was like he was like alone in a place. We're on Army base, Army barracks. Like it's not, I'm not saying nothing could go wrong, but and also we're not even allowed. We're minors. He had to sneak us in. But Warren didn't go. It was just me. Warren went to the gym. I'm by myself. So I went, and he just like had this setup, and I was like blown away. I don't know how it happened, but somehow we figured out that actually he worked with my dad.
Oh, wow.
So then I got permission to go there.
Right.
So he was like a mentor like that. And so watching him DJ is how he let me touch the turntables. And so that's how I like, oh, okay, this is how you do this. He showed me what you do. And then in the summer of '85 was the first time I ever spent the summer away from my parents. I went to go stay with my grandparents in Galesburg, Illinois. And when I came back home, my parents and the other part of my group was Eddie Barber, MC TNT, burning hot TNT. Him and my parents arranged for a welcome home party for me because I was gone for part of the summer. So they threw a block party. And they had Pill DJ. I came home to this like DJ set up in our driveway, and people were there. He was spinning live. And then towards the end of the party, he goes, "All right, special announcement. Today we're going to hear from. Today we're going to get to witness a brand new DJ do his first ever DJ set." And I was like, "Oh my god, who's it going to be? Like, who's this DJ?" He's like, "Kevin Beacham, come to the turntables." I was like, "What?" So that's how I first DJ, because he put me on the spot at my welcome home party to DJ. He's like, "Do what I showed you."
Yeah.
So I DJ.
That's
my own welcome home party.
That's how mentors do it, man. Yeah, that's how mentors do it, brother.
That was like kind of what kind of started my bug for DJing. But the whole time, though, I knew the basics, but I never had the equipment. I had just a belt drive turntable and the realistic mixer that everyone, the Radio Shack realistic, the classic, and I had that from '85 to 2000. That was my mixer. I never had turntables that whole time. When I first started doing mixtapes and doing even DJing, I never had I never owned turntables.
So how did you do it? Like 4-track or something like that?
No. I'm saying I borrowed turntables.
I got you.
And when I DJed live, I would have to think about all the mixes in my head and just hope it would work in person. I never had a chance to practice.
So you freestyled it.
Everything, yeah. Cause I had no way to practice. When I made mixtapes, it's like I would borrow them for a couple of days. I had to figure out the whole thing in a couple of days and make it work because I didn't have time to prepare.
Wow.
I would just prepare everything I could just in my head, listen to songs. So that helped me become a good DJ because I had to listen to the songs so much to understand them, to be like, is it the same speed? Listen to it. I would spend so much time trying to figure it out. I think that was ended up being a positive thing. So DJing was something I didn't really touch on until I moved to Minneapolis and after I stopped doing everything else. Once I stopped emceeing and stopped producing, the DJing thing became more of an interest to me. I'm like, okay, I've always had this in my blood and dabbled in it. Let me just go all out.
Right.
And so that's what really, and that's when I really started going, you know, by Nicholas and okay, let me have a DJ name and all that stuff and do mixtapes and spin live more.
Right.
That came, you know, like later. I didn't start that to like 98 after like starting DJing in like 84.
So where does the group Wild Style fit in?
But Wild Style, that is formed in 86, 87,
Right.
North Chicago. Like when I first moved to North Chicago, before that, because in Kansas and Germany, no one my age was rapping. I was the only one my age rapping. Everyone else was emceeing was a GI or was in high school, and that was even rare. There was more like everyone was breakdancing at some point, you know. Not everyone, but you know, that was common in my age group. Even breakdance was common, but rapping, no, definitely no one was DJing in my age group.
Well, breakdancing was the easiest thing to do, right? Out of all the elements.
You just could just do a couple of moves and bang.
Yeah, pop and lock and you good.
Right, you're good. Just figure out a couple of things. And so, you know, no one of my age was doing it, and then it started like the people that were my friends that wanted to do it. I would teach them, and then then I would create the people my age. So I was like kind of like unique in that way until I moved to North Chicago. That was the first time, you know, it's like that was like also like my icebreaker too. Like that was how it was easy for me to like move to different schools.
Right.
Like rapping was my magic trick. That was like, oh, this guy got a guy that can rap. So it was like a way to get like break the ice.
Icebreaker. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So when I moved to Chicago, I remember like I was like, okay, you know, I'm good. I got my icebreaker. And like, hey, what you doing? And it's like, you know, I would meet people, and I always find a way to be like, yeah, and I rap. You know, like I was like, they didn't ask, but I would bring it up just so I could like break the ice. But the funny thing is, North Chicago, every time I did that, they'd go, oh, you rap? You got to meet Doc Rock. I was like, okay, Doc Rock. No one ever asked me, well, let me hear you rap.
Right.
They were just like, you got to meet Doc Rock. So I was like, who? Why? Am I talking about me? And they go hear Doc Rock. I'm tired of hearing about Doc. It's supposed to be about me right now. What the hell? Right. And so then, like, after that, for like a few days of that, and then I was in homeroom one day. This guy next to me was like, hey, what you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm writing a rhyme. I rap.
There you go.
He goes, you got to hear Doc Rock. I'm like, as everyone keeps saying, yeah, I will be glad to meet Doc Rock. He's like, oh, that's my brother. I was like, okay. He's like, oh.
Dude, like, you're always in the right places at the right time, bro.
No, it just works out. No, it's crazy, right? He's like, meet us by the library after school. And, you know, you can meet Doc Rock. I'm like, I'll be there. And so I went by the library that time, and he was like, here's this guy, you know, he had a little entourage with him. He's like, let me hear you rhyme. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm new here, so I could. And back then, you know, it was like harmonizing a little bit, then some like kind of like playful battle rhymes. I think my rhyme I had was like this, like Mary had a little lamb. it was like Cooley rules the hip hop world. It was like something like that. It was like this little song, and it will stay that way. And then I got into like a little battle rhyme. He was like, oh yeah, that's cool, man. And then he kicked this rhyme that was like the hardest rhyme I ever heard. I remember like he kicked like 2 bars. I was like, this guy's as good as Tila Rock. That's what I thought. And Tila Rock was like
Tila Rock was no joke. Like Tila Rock was like he wasn't like, I don't even want to say it this way because hip hop is so different now, and it's changed so many years. They used to rhyme simple back then. Tila Rock was not a simple rapper to me, man.
He was one of the key ones that helped elevate it to the next level.
Yeah, he was a complex rapper to me. He was like one of the first.
Yes. And so when I heard this guy, Doc Rock, do that, I was like, okay, I gotta step it up. And so he was a big inspiration. He became like not really a mentor, but like probably an unknowing mentor. I told him now, since then, and we talk now, I told him that, but like I was just inspired by him to like really step my game up. And so from doing that, I started to learn that there were other MCs in the school for the first time. Oh, I'm not the only one rapping in my school. And then I met some other people, and one of this guy was in my math class, this guy, Vernon. He just dabbled. He was like, you know, he was more like a smooth cat. He was like the coolest, one of the coolest dudes in school, and he could rap, but he was just focused on other things. But he had some friends, this guy, LA, and this who was in school with us, and then this DJ who was in school in Wisconsin, in Kenosha, called DJ Flawless. He's like, you gotta meet my friends Flawless in LA. I'm like, okay. And they had already made like tapes, like this like freestyle tapes, acapella tapes, and like stuff like that.
So can I ask you a question real quick, Kevin?
Yeah.
Because when I was living in New York, I always noticed that, okay, you have your native New Yorkers, but there was always transplants from, let's say, Jersey, Boston, always coming in and out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so in Chicago, was it the same way where you had a bunch of people from Midway, like from, Wisconsin and maybe even Texas, like constantly,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a revolving door?
Yeah, yeah, because like I'm saying, when I first moved to Illinois, I lived for a brief time in Highwood, which is right next to Highland Park, and the reason why that is because across the street from right next to Highwood is Fort Sheridan, and on Fort Sheridan, one of my best friends was this guy named Mike, and at the time he was just a guy who just loved hip hop. Him and his older brother Chuck just loved hip hop the way I did, but I was the only one that rapped at that point,
Right.
But Mike is Spo of Rubber Room. He later on became.
Oh, no fucking way.
Yeah, yeah. Because we went to high school for a brief second. Like I was there for I went to that school for 10 days. But we stayed in touch. And so when Spo first wrote his first rhyme, he called me. He's like, dude, I remember because he was like the funny dude. He was like a comedian. Him and his brother were like comedians. Right. I would rap and they would tell jokes. That was like we go out anywhere, they'd be funny. I'd be the rapper. And so when he called me, he's like, I'm rapping now, I started laughing because I thought he was going to be like Biz Markie. I was like, oh yeah, he's going to be hilarious. Funny stories. I thought he was going to be like the Weird Al of rap. That's what I thought Spo was going to be based on his personality. So I was like, yeah, come by the house. And when he came by and just did like this hardcore rap, I was like, I have the tape. You can hear it. He's like, he raps and he sees my expression. He's like, what? Told you I had lyrics. It's like, that's all real. And I have the tape. And I was like, what? He's like, I told you I had lyrics. And then you saw rapping. Yeah, yeah.
Is that available?
Oh yeah. Sure, I can get you that. Yeah, no, but I'm saying and he was my point was he's from Texas. Right. So and so every time everyone was moving from different places. So Illinois was interesting because that was the first time I had both things. They had the Army base there. You had the Army base in Fort Sheridan, also the Navy base in Great Lakes. So people moving from all over, like you're saying. But that was also the first time that I lived somewhere where people grew up in one place.
Right. The roots were there.
Because everywhere I lived, I lived on an Army base in different places that everyone had spent their life moving around for the most part.
Correct.
And so now I'm like, oh yeah, people who had never even left North Chicago or Waukegan, they had never left, their 10, 15 city blocks or whatever. So that was like two extremes for me. So I was meeting people from coming in from all over and meeting people who had never been anywhere but where they were born. It was both happening at that time. So yeah, it was a crazy time.
All right, and so go back. So no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's perfect. So that was when I met LA and Flawless,
right?
AKA Shannon. We went to Shannon's house in Kenosha, and we just did a session. And me and LA wrote a song together called Flawless. About our DJ is Flawless. That was his name. Right. We got a song called Flawless Without a Mistake, and we recorded it. And then that was sort of the okay, this came out good. We should become a group. And I remember, at the time I worked at the McDonald's. I was a manager at McDonald's in North Chicago on Green Bay Road. And one Friday night we were just hanging out. Me and LA were by that McDonald's, thinking of it we gotta need a name. We're gonna call ourselves. And we were having all these names. It's got to be something that represents the old school, but also the future. What can it be? And somehow we got to Wild Style because I was a big fan of Wild Style, and also people always, when we would rap, we had this way of rhyming. People would be like, y'all crazy, y'all rap for the crazy, y'all these crazy words and crazy styles. And we were like, oh, we could be called Wild Style.
Right.
And also, I don't say this often, but it's funny. But when I was in Kansas. And I had my group, the 3D crew. I mentioned Warren and Eddie. We were the 3D crew. And DJ Pill was our DJ. We always want to be different. And so I always I never care about following trends. So everyone was wearing Adidas. And so we didn't want to wear Adidas. But the Tom McCann was the store?
The store, Tom McCann's, yeah. We used to buy different types of shoes in there, yeah.
They had a pair of tennis shoes called Adidas, but they only had 2 stripes or something like that. They were something. They were slightly different than Adidas. I think they were 2 stripes or 4 stripes. I can't remember what it was. But they were called Wild Styles. The shoes.
No way.
They were called Wild Styles, and so 3D Crew wore Wild Style tennis shoes. That was the tennis shoes we had. And we had this. We had when we won our second competition at a rap contest at the local skating rink, Skate Junction. We ended our routine like, we're a cold crush crew and you can't defeat us. Where Wild Styles got tired of Adidas. TALENT is what you need to be a Def MC. And we got that, and you know it's true, or we wouldn't be called the 3D crew. And that's how our routine ended right there. Yeah, so like, yeah, that's how we won our first contest, our second contest. So yeah, so like we had these, so all those things is tied into like, okay, we're trying to tie into all these different things.
And what year is that with Wild Style?
That was 85. Yeah, they won that contest at Skate Junction in 85, the summer 85.
And did you release an album?
No, we never did.
Group or no? Nothing?
See, I never released any music. I worked on like 10 different albums between. I recorded myself the tape the first time in 82. I started that tape, my first time ever recording tape. I had that. And from 82 to 2001, I worked on like 10 different albums. And I never released anything.
But do you still have the material?
Oh, I started releasing that stuff now, like the Wild Style stuff. Like the Wild Style stuff's on Spotify. Like that album is on that a version of the album is on Spotify. The Wild Style stuff and a few things. But yeah, but it kind of how I really started getting back to making music now. Originally, my only idea was to go back and complete those albums that I never finished.
Right.
It's for myself. I wonder what those albums would sound like. Like I have all the notes for the beats and the lyrics for all I still have the lyrics and beats and plans, the notes for the hooks. I have all that stuff in notebooks. I still have that stuff.
And so you kept a lot of stuff, huh?
Oh no, I've been an archivist from the beginning, pretty much.
Wow, no joke. So between Wild Style and then Savage Intellect, what's the journey between Wild Style and Savage Intellect? Because I remember Savage Intellect. I was in the military when I first heard Savage Intellect. I was in the military from 98 to 02.
Oh, okay.
And I used to go to a ton of different sites like fullblown.com, undergroundhiphopsite.com, ATAC distributions, all those sites. And I remember them having that single and buying I think it was a cassette single of Savage Intellect, if I'm not mistaken. Or either that or I illegally downloaded the MP3, one of the two. But
probably like, I never did anything official. So yeah, probably like a download. I did release like a few demos back then. Yeah. So I
didn't know it was you though. I didn't know it was you.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I definitely put out a few demos on some of those websites. That's someone else with the same name. It's possible, but like, no, I had.
No, it was you.
Okay. Trust me. All right. So what happened was, like all those these stories, the same stories a lot of times. Like, Wild Style, we were a group that was about like, pushing limits creatively, but also part of it was like we didn't have a problem with like. We understood the business too, to a certain degree. Correct. So like I considered when we were challenged to make like hip house, I was like I would do those songs like how can I do that and still be a good writer? If you want to make a rock song, a house song, a love song, I'd always be like I take it as a challenge. Okay, how can I do it and still be good?
Right.
So I did. It wasn't like I was opposed to doing different things, but when we got a chance to get a record deal, we got an offer from Atlantic Records. They came out to a show, had the A&R's business card. We booked the show just so they could watch us perform. I was my first show I ever threw in '89 was a show so Atlantic Records could watch us perform. That was like my first ever show I booked.
Did they hear about you from word of mouth, or was it somebody in your camp contacted them?
Flawless became DJ Mad Max. He was only Flawless for that one demo, then became Mad Max. And then his mom worked for like a law firm. I'm forgetting, but his mom worked for like a law firm or something like that, some kind of way. And through that, she would get contacts. Like one thing we did as Wild Style was she was working with Parker Brothers on something, a board game. It was for teenage girls, targeting teenage girls, a matchmaking dating game. And we made the theme song for it. The game ended up the game never went into production. It only was in demo phase, but we were supposed to have our song. We made the song. I still have that song. Like it's on Spotify, but like
I gotta hear it.
It's called My Match, and like it was basically going to be on cassette in the game, and included with the board game, and used with the commercial for Parker Brothers. But it just never came out. So like their mom was getting us different contacts, and so they got some deal they were doing with someone with Atlantic Records. She gave him the demo. Like she was a fan of the song we had called "Cool on the Block."
Okay.
It
Okay.
was supposed to be our summer single, and she was a fan of Cooling on the Block, and so like her and his brother, younger brother, so they would like they would play that song for people. You know, like there's a story that Mad Max told me like only a couple of years ago. I didn't know this, but like there's a Mad Max passed away last year, so I've been
Oh
trying to
man, R.I.P. man.
yeah, I've been trying to like do things that like honor him and his how he's important to me because he was so important, like pushing me to be better and like just helping me learn a lot of things by making music. And there was this thing where like they were like at like I don't know, like a Best Buy or a Circuit City, something like that, maybe like a Circuit City, and it's him, his brother, and his mother, and his brother's over there by like the boom boxes, like checking out the boom boxes, and then his mom at the counter, and all of a sudden over the loudspeaker, over loud enough for them to hear, "Cool on the Block" starts playing.
No way.
And his mom's like, "That's my son. They're on the radio." And she's like freaking out, but that was actually Mad Max's brother playing the tape.
In one of the boom boxes.
he was trying to play for everybody to hear it, so he wouldn't play it for the store to hear. Blasting it in the store, blasting Cool in the Block, and she's thinking it's on the radio. It was just like this funny story.
That's
like,
dope though. She's like, yeah, you guys made it.
Yeah, because she cared about that.
Right, that's dope.
She connected us with the Atlantic Records thing, and then they came. I still can picture. I can picture the guy. He was like typical, long hair, big bushy, bushy mustache. Like he was a straight rock dude.
Right.
He gave us the card. I booked the show at the Waukegan YMCA on Sheridan Road, and we did this show. Like I got Captain Too Fresh, the main DJ for the area, the DJ for it. So yeah, it was a big deal. But they end up Atlantic Records. When we had a follow-up meeting, they were like, "We like your demo. We like the writing on this. We like the production. But right now, we're only signing groups like NWA and Too Short." Because it's '89. They had just blown up. That was like a big deal for the West Coast. And so you find, in 1990, whatever, '89, all these groups sounding like that. So that from Atlantic Records, I know that to be true. Like everyone was trying to find, a few years later, like everyone was trying to find Wu-Tang a few years later, or try to find someone do the Chronic.
And this was like the pre-gangster rap NWA, right? This is like the
no. This is just Straight Outta Compton. This is just Straight Outta Compton.
This is during Straight Outta Compton era.
'89. This is Straight Outta Compton. This came out, and Born to Mac, Too Short. Those were the two things that they were trying to get us to do.
Yeah, because I know Too Short was gangster, but I know I think NWA's first album was more like a Public Enemy, like a West Coast Public Enemy.
Yeah. That's what like they had. It was like kind of a little bit about because you had Gangster on there, you had A B is a B, you had a few different things like that, and so they basically asked us would be willing to make music like that, and I was like no, and they were like would you be willing to write for artists like that, and I was actually considered that, but still
Ghostwriter.
Yeah, they want us to be in production, they want us to produce and write that, and they're like we'll consider it, and then we never called them back because I was just disheartened, and that was kind of the beginning of In the Wild Style. We couldn't come to agreement on that.
Because some of the members wanted to do it. Is that what it was? I mean, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I don't want to.
No, it's not even that. It's that I honestly don't even really remember.
Right. Okay.
Where it broke. I don't really remember, and I don't want to assume. And I've talked to Mad Max about it. But, we reconnected right before he passed away. We reconnected, and I interviewed him. So it's dope to be able to interview him. And all that, because I wanted his blessing to do release the stuff. I did release the Wild Style stuff, so we talked about that. And he was like, and we couldn't remember. He was like, we were both this young, and it's like it was like our dream right in front of our face, and it didn't plan out and it didn't happen like we thought. So we both were all of us. I mean, all three of us. And so I think we were all just a little bit disheartened. So that just caused friction naturally.
Right, it happened.
And so that has kind of happened. And so what happened was I always thought we would get back together. To me, like Wild Style was the future. Like that was my future, was Wild Style. I thought that was not only that, because me and Max were also production partners. We had a home studio where we recorded local groups, the Rage Productions. So we had our own production company. We had like a 4-track 808 drum machine.
Right.
Casio SK5 sampler. It was like budget, but we were able to make songs in our living room. And so I always thought we were going to work together forever. That was going to be my thing. And so when I started making solo music, only for the point of like so they could hear it and be like, oh yeah, we got to make music together. I was trying to like force them, like, look what I'm doing, guys. Y'all better get with this. It's gonna be cool, but it didn't work. So they went and spit their own thing, and like they actually just stopped making music. Mad Max stayed making music for a little while, made some really. He produced one of Spo's first demos. Well, I did Spo's first demo. He did Spo's second demo.
That's
so like
dope.
When Spo was so like, and he did a dope demo for Spo in like '91, super dope demo, like 5-6 tracks.
Now, did he know? Did he already know Metamo and all them other dudes?
No, I can tell you also. So what happened was we were working with Spo became through Rage Productions, the groups that I was producing, me and Max were producing through our production company. We started kind of like an alliance. You know, everything was a posse. We didn't want to be the hard rock posse. We were the hard rock alliance. That was our posse, the hard rock alliance. And so we had a bunch of groups in the hard rock alliance. You know, Wild Style and DOPE, Brain Leakage, Black Man Zeke, I Spy, Underground Solution. And Spo was one of our groups. And Spo had his own like crew, people, the Rhythm Mafia, and that was like Twice Born, LOD. Thaw 4 came from there.
Thaw 4, bro. I love Thaw 4, bro.
Yeah, so Thaw 4 first came from that. So I still have Thaw 4's the first demo I got that he gave me that never came out.
Right.
You know, because that was a group that was an artist that Spo found. So I remember Spo ended up becoming, because he was like, we had a lot of artists, but Spo was really the best full package. So he was always the priority. Like, okay, we got to get him signed, and then we'll get other things next. He came to me, and we were focused on him as the premier act in a solo demo. And he came to me, he's like, hey, I met this group at Lower Links that wants me to maybe join their group. I have an audition. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. I think you should be active doing stuff and never know where to come for it. But our priority is your solo thing. But go check it out. It can't hurt. Right. See what happens. And so he went to the woods to do this thing with Rubber Room. And then that next week, we and Spo met every Sunday. So that next Sunday, I came to his house in Highland Park apartment, and I'm like, okay, play me the tape. And that was the first welcome to the Rubber Room. How you doing? Yeah. Welcome. And I heard it. He played it. I sat there silently. When it was done, I said, stop. I was like, join the group. You're in that group now. Right. That's the priority.
Yeah. Yeah. Rubber Room is like, they're in a class by themselves. Like when I first heard their first album, I didn't know they had like previous EPs or anything before that. But when I heard that first album, Architechnology, like that shit was like, I can't even talk about it, honestly, bro. That shit was
special, man. Like, no, I'm saying I heard that one song, and I was like, that I changed the whole. I was like, I told him a few days before that his solo career was a priority. Heard that one song, was like, nope. This group is the priority. Join that group and make more of this.
Right. Yeah. So Savage Intellect, man. So what's up with Savage Intellect? So how you get into that?
So I started making solo music, thinking I would get Wild Style back together. That didn't work. And so I started making solo music, and I never did anything with it because I didn't like the idea of performing on stage. Like the group that I had 3D Crew, I had Wild Style. I love the group dynamic. In many ways, I love the group dynamic, and so I never got motivated to do a solo project. So I came up with the idea of Savage Intellect, and this is perfect, ties together because. The name, I was looking for a name. I knew I wanted the name to have this balance. I wrote a song. One of the first post-Wild Style songs I wrote was called Wild Like an Animal, this all ties together right here perfectly. Wild Like an Animal is a vocal sample from His Majesty. His Majesty is a rap group on the Egyptian Empire label, Egyptian Levelers label, right? In that group is Shakespeare the One Man Riot, who originally was Doc Rock, who I told you about.
Oh, yeah, everybody kept telling you to meet.
When he graduated from high school, he went to LA to make it as a rapper. The first one, that was one of the biggest ways he inspired me. He's like, I'm going to go to LA with no plan just to rap. I'm like, you're going to LA to rap? Like he told me stories like he would like sleep on the streets. He was like, he just went there, would be wherever and could rap. He could rap. And he met Drew, who was a DJ and MC, who now people know as Psycho of Insane Poetry.
Oh, shit.
Before that. So him and Drew became His Majesty and got a record deal. The first person I ever knew with a record deal, right? So on that 12 inch, they did one 12 inch. On that 12 inch, they say "Wild Like an Animal." They say it twice actually. And so I was like, because of how they were, inspiration for me, I wanted to do a vocal sample from them. And so, okay, I'm gonna sample "Wild Like an Animal," but I wanted a counterbalance. I want to be like, how do you can be like wild like an animal, but also calm? Like I want to be both. That's me. I always want to be like balanced, even back then. So one day, when Doc Rock, now Shakespeare, moved to LA, he would come back to visit his family. One day in 1989, he came back to visit, and I didn't know he was coming back. I was at the bus stop, got on the bus, and here he was on the bus. I was like Shakespeare? He's like, oh, what's up?
Always right place, right time, dude.
He just got back in town. He had just got back from this music seminar, and I think I don't know. I think it was like Jack the Rapper or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But he's like, there's 3 artists you gotta look for. He's like, these 3 artists. He was like,
he's telling you this.
Yeah, he's telling me. Okay. I said, I went to this. I've never been to any kind of convention or anything like that. Right. He's in the industry now. He's got a record deal. He's in the industry. He's like, I went to this convention, and there's 3 artists you got to check for. Chill Rob G. He told me Chill Rob G. He's like, he has a song. He's like, I don't know what it's called, but the opening words are, I'm dope, face it, shoot it, freebase it, pour it in the glass, drink it, chase it, then chill, plex, feel the full effects. I was like, okay, yeah, I gotta check for that. That guy's dope. He's like, another one is from Philly, Ice Cream Tea. She's dope. I'm like, all right, Ice Cream Tea. And I got that. I still love that record. It's like, oh man, there's some gems on that. If you don't know that record, there's like half that record is great.
Didn't she inspire Bahamadia?
Probably, because it's from Philly. That's possible. I never heard that, but that would make total sense to me. Like
I could have sworn, I saw an interview where she referenced.
I gotta look for that, because I would love to know that, because I'm a big Bahamadia fan, and that
Bahamadia is dope.
You go listen to National Speaker by Ice Cream Tea. Look that up, and then you'll be like, okay, I can see where Bahamadia.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Listen to National Speaker, and then go listen to Innovation from Bahamadia.
Okay, from the Collage album.
That's just me thinking off the top. You saying that, I never even thought about it before, but those 2 in my head, like, oh, okay. Those offbeat, on-beat styles are kind of cool. Yeah. So he told me about Ice Cream Tea. He goes, he's like, the last person to check out for is a guy produced by Dre. He's like, I don't even know his name, but he rapped to a beat that samples the drum from Houdini's Friends. And I said, okay. He's like, I don't even know his name, but he came out with a song that was dope, and that was the DOC.
Oh, the DOC, man.
Mind blowing. He's like, he just heard. He's like, this guy only came out and did one song. This guy came out with Dre. Did one song at this conference. He did Mind Blowing. That was like, he's like, he didn't even say his name. I don't even know what his name was. He's like, he came out, he was with Dre, and he had the beat from Friends Houdini in the background. That's all I know. I was like, okay, I'll just look out for that. So the song that I wrote was called Wild Like an Animal, Smooth Like a Prism. Smooth Like a Prism is a DOC quote. So I kind of put Shakespeare with DOC because he told me about DOC for this song. And that was like that balance, wild like an animal, smooth like a prism. Like, that's my style. I want to be wild like an animal, but smooth like a prism. So I was trying to think of a name that captured that. So I had all these names: brutal intelligence, brutal wisdom, savage smart. So I was like, all these names.
Yo, all MCs do that. They try to come up with the illest names. Sometimes they sound silly, Yeah,
like, no. But Spo, so Spo had a song called I think this is Putting Heads to Bed, a demo he did with Mad Max. And in there he says, the crew of savage intellect. And I was literally working. So Mad Max produced this Spo demo. Then Mad Max disappeared. He would disappear sometimes. He would just disappear for like months. He disappeared.
Like, where would he go?
He would just go off on his own, just to like meditate.
Like adventures?
No, just like he would just disappear to like reset his.
I got you.
Yeah, he would just like, that was just his thing. He was like, if he hit a wall and got frustrated, he would just disappear. And so he disappeared. So me and K Body of Underground Solution were going to finish the Spo demo, and K Body was a better producer than me, but he liked my arrangement. I was the kind of person I would learn when I was doing demos. I would learn every artist, every word. I would memorize. I would write down their lyrics, memorize their lyrics, so I would know where to put the drops. Because I would know, got to highlight that word. So I would do the arrangement. So K-Body would produce things, and
Right.
then asked me to do the arrangements.
Well, I
So
mean, you even said yourself that you were good with mixing without having, like equipment because you kind of arranged everything in your head. So you were really already good at that.
I didn't even think about that. But that makes perfect sense, right? And so I remember I'm sitting here, I'm listening to this demo just to like learn the lyrics, and I'm thinking about my artist name while I'm doing that. And then he says, Crew of Savage. I'm like, wait a second, Savage Intellect. That's literally what I'm trying to come up with. And that's amazing. So Spo's in the next room. I'm like, hey, when you say this line, what is that? Who is the Crew of Savage? He's like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. It's just, I just made it. It just sounded cool. I just said it. I was like, can I be the Crew of Savage Intellect? He's like, yeah, you can have it. So that's where it came from.
That's
so the whole idea of it was Savage Intellect was, I liked it because it was a group name. I was like, I'm a solo artist with a group name. That way, I was working with like a lot of young artists who were just like learning how to rhyme, who were dope, but didn't really have their full footing. So my whole idea was that every Savage Intellect project, I would be the center of it, but it would be a different MC, like a young MC I was mentoring. They would be and DJ. I would mentor. It would be a mentorship program.
Right.
That was idea of Savage Intellect. It was a mentorship program. So basically, every project it'd be a different second MC and a different DJ who I would mentor and then prepare them to go do their own projects.
Right.
And every album, it would be me and two other people. That was the idea of Savage Intellect. So I could still be a soloist,
right,
but also have a group and also a mental artist. It was a way to kind of bring all my kind of passions together.
Right. It was kind of like a hip hop factory.
Yeah.
With an assembly line, in and out, doom.
And I had to feel like
product complete, boom, go fly.
Like DJ Steezo was one of my DJs. Then he graduated to Rubber Room.
Right.
So like I'm saying, you see it. That's why the ones where you saw how it worked. But because it was like DJ Dread, and then it was Steezo. Yeah, it is evolved. Like it had this guy. It was a different dude named Illogic. That was around the way that he was going to be in it. This guy Crypto, who became MC.
So wait, is that the Illogic from Rhymesayers or
different
Illogic? Okay, different one. Okay,
different. Yeah. It's like so like all these different MCs and DJs were part of Savage Intellect for brief periods of time. So yeah, that was the idea. Was I kind of make like a hip hop factory, basically. Yeah.
All right. So then, from there, where do you fit into the WNUR radio station, the Northwest University radio station, time travel radio show? So how does that connect to you having this hip hop factory where you're putting, you're being a mentor and you're kind of letting these people, refine their skills, helping them, and then you're letting them fly? Where's the time frame? What happens between that and then and then jumping into the time travel show?
Yeah, this is like perfect. You're asking these questions that time up and line up in a great way.
I'm trying to, bro. You understand?
In ways that I didn't even think about in some of these things. I actually just wrote a song. Here's a sneak preview. I just wrote a song called "The Sound Experiment," and that's the NUR's tagline. I wrote a song about my history in NUR, and doing that made me think about things I hadn't thought about in a long time. So when I first moved to Illinois. And I was going to Highland Park High School for a while, like I said, with Mike and his brother Chuck G. It was Mike it was Spo who told me about NUR. He's like, this station, they play hip hop, they play the underground, check it out. And he gave me a tape. And I was like, oh, okay. I remember that first tape. It had, that's how I first heard Mikey D in the Symbolic 3, We're Treacherous. I was like, oh, that song is dope. We're Treacherous. Mackie D, the rap title regainer, I give away juice by the container. I was like, okay, this dude's dope. And so that's how I first heard that, through Spo, and they gave me that tape.
Now Mikey D's from
Queens.
He's from Queens, so he's took over for Large Professor. Is that the Mikey D that took over for Large Professor? And
this is like his first record, because like before that, he was already a Queens legend because he was He was in a group with LL. He was a battle.
Right. Nobody knows that though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring that out. Right. That's untold history.
So that's how I first heard Mikey D, was through that NUR tape. And so I would listen to NUR back then. They had a few different shows, and I would record. And that's how I heard a lot of rap songs in the 80s. From 85 to the early 90s, how I first heard a lot of songs was through NUR. Super important. Even like there was like a show, they had a show called Street Beat that just played anything like, dance, music, electronic, and some rap. But they would play a lot of UK hip hop. A lot of how I learned about UK hip hop, like Silver Bullet,
right, Jest and all them.
This is about, well, this is before. This is like
before Jest. Okay, yeah.
It's like late 80s. It's like Silver Bullet.
Crispy 3?
What's that?
Was Crispy 3?
That era, but I don't think they were playing Crispy 3. But I don't remember that particular, but that era, that kind of era, that like late 80s, early 90s, kind of like. Because
that was the first UK hip hop group that I heard before, like Jest and all those other guys. It was Crispy 3. And then they dropped the 3 part and they just became Crispy.
Right. Because they were on Cold Sweat, I believe, right?
Yes, that's it. Yep.
I just recently I got Old Spool writing compilation. I just got, I'm a big UK rap fan.
Right.
That era, but even now, I'm a big fan.
UK rap is slept on like big time, bro.
Yes,
I love UK rap.
Man.
Yeah, Kalashnikov is dope. Jest. I mean, there's a bunch of dudes, man.
A lot of dudes. Yeah, Dirty Goods. Woo, I'm a huge fan of Dirty Goods. Yeah, so I can go on. I can do a whole podcast about how I love UK hip hop. I can do a whole 3 hours about my love for UK hip hop. So anyway, I was listening to
Task Force.
Oh, Task Force. When I first heard New Mike Order EP.
Yeah, bro. New Mike Order.
I know. I remember the day I bought that.
Man, let's not do it. Let's not go there. I'm sorry. My bad, bro.
Yeah. And you are.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One of my guys that were part of the Hard Rock Alliance was Black Man Zeke. And he had talked to the people at NUR who ran the Sunday show, Wise Son and Romaine. I believe it was their show. He got them to give us a small, like 15-minute section on their show where we would bring down local artists to interview them and play their demo on NUR. That was Zeke's idea. We only did it one time, and it was Kinetic Order. We brought down Kinetic Order, and played their.
Kinetic Order is Jeff Baraka.
No, that's Whole Type Star. So like Kinetic Order,
Star, yes.
That's Rob Free and Judgmental. Judgmental is who won like the New Music Seminar MC Battle World Championship in '94.
Right. They had an album called The Circus or something, right?
That is their demo. Yeah, the demo called. So yeah, they never had an album. Yeah, but they had the Circus. I think we played that on New Orleans that night. But like they had like a 5-song demo that was like one of my favorite demos I ever heard in my life. Is
right. There's a demo that you introduced me to, but I don't want to talk about it yet. But when I tell you, you're gonna be like, "Oh shit!" You probably forgot about him. Go ahead, but keep going.
I'm excited. But yeah, so we did that on NUR, and that kind of opened the door. But I still didn't take it serious. I was like, "Oh, that was cool," but I didn't think much about it. That was more Zeke's thing, and I didn't even do anything with that. But I would go down to. But then I started in '92. I started my own company, Rage Promotions. I was looking for a way to get in the industry. So I was working with all these groups, but had no connections to record labels. I'm like, I need a connection to record labels. So what happened was, like I said, I knew His Majesty. It's all ties together. This is so It's so weird how it all bounces back and forth around these few things. But what happened was, His Majesty broke up, and they both, Shakespeare and Drew, were going to do solo stuff. So Shakespeare came home to tell me that we had another meeting. This is like '91. He told me that, Drew went solo. He's got a project called Insane Poetry. And this demo he got this demo called Black Widow. And so I was like, okay, I'll look out for this Black Widow project. And so one day I see an ad in the source for Insane Poetry. How you gonna reason with a psycho on Nasty Mix Records? I'm like, oh, I know. And by then I had lost contact with Shakespeare and Drew. We had lost contact. I was like a year later. And so I just called Nasty Man. Back then, I would look in every record or tape or magazine. If there was a number to call, I would call any label and be like, "How can I help this artist?" I do promotions in Chicago, which I
and the source, Rap Pages, Rap Sheet,
yeah,
and even Herb were really good at leaving numbers so you can contact a lot of these labels.
I would buy every magazine I could and then call like. If you had a number in a magazine and you had a song I like, I guarantee you I called you.
I know you did. Trust me.
And I have the notes. I still have my phone notes. I would make notes. I have notebooks where I'm like, today I called PMD about his, like Hit Squad. I have like all these notes still of calling like all these people. And so I called Nasty Mix and I was like, I know this is kind of a strange thing, but I actually know Drew of Insane Poetry. We've done, some, tapes together and stuff like that, freestyle tapes. I'm just trying to get in touch with him. Can you please just give him my number? I'm like, I was naive thinking that someone record label would pass on my number to Drew. But I was just like, I would call anybody. And they were like, And I was like, is there anything I can do to help in Chicago? They're like, well, you can do promotions. I was like, what does that mean? They're like, we'll send you some posters and some records and give the DJs and record stores. I was like, yeah, I can do that. That's it. That's it? Yeah, I can do that. Hung up the phone. I was like, that's it. If labels need that, that's how I can meet people in the business.
Right. You're that guy.
Yeah. I literally took my next paycheck and went out and bought a fax machine, business card, and I was a business from that day on. And I would just call and fax every label, like I do promotions. And so that was kind of how like that started. And so from there, I know this is a long way to get you.
No, dude, spare no details, homie.
All right. I'm a detailed person. So like
me too.
So like when I would do my runs, my job was to give like promotions. I would go like to DJs, record stores, and radio shows. Like, here's the latest 12-inch cassette, stickers, posters, whatever. And since NUR was on the way back home to where I lived in Waukegan, North Chicago, I would save it for last on my trip, and I would try to go on the days of hip hop shows on Sundays. So I would go to Chicago, do record stores or hit DJs on Sundays during the day, and then come back late at night and go to NUR. And because it was my last stop, I would just hang out there longer. And because I knew a lot about hip hop, the host I would always be, they play something, oh, that's so-and-so, this demo. They'd be like, oh, you know a lot about hip hop. Like, oh, yeah. So they would like ask me questions. They got interested in what I knew about hip hop. And so I would start going down there, just be like, I would bring demos they didn't have, and I would basically use that to get them to play the records I was promoting. Like I bringing that new, YZ record, but also bringing that Kool Keith demo you liked,
Right, so I would, that's dope.
I would try to get them that's how I would like, try to help convince them to play stuff.
Is this YZ like Master Plan or this YZ like
Acid Rain era? Like I talked, YZ's. Well, I called YZ when his number was in the stores for 720 management. I talked to YZ and I was promoting for YZ.
He was so great, man, and he only dropped 2 albums, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, he did some other albums, but like later. But like he did a few albums post that, but like in that time frame, he was
awesome. I loved him.
And the EP. So I was just going out NUR frequently, and then some people I knew got a show. This guy Jello, who was friends with Jay Bird, who I've been connected with in so many ways and all these decades. Jello got a show at NUR called In the AM. And I would go down there because I knew Jello and Jay Bird, and 33 1/3 was a DJ for that show. So I would go down there. And at some point, the program director was Sean Boogie Boyd. He just called me and said, hey, Jello can't make it this week. Can you come, host a show? And I was like, host a radio show? I know music.
Right.
I can talk about it. I was like, sure. Right. So I went down and I hosted the show and thought that was it. I was like, I loved it. It was amazing. I loved it. Next week, I got the call again, like, hey, he's not coming back. Can you come back again? I was like, yeah, I'll come back again.
So when they say host a show, like you're just introducing and you're talking about music, or what is
I play whatever I want. They're like, you play whatever you want. Like,
wow, that's dope, man.
And so I went down there and I did it again. And Jello never came back. To this day, I have no idea why.
Wow.
That's how Time Travel started. He just
did you thank Jello?
No, I didn't want to bring it up because I was like, he might decide to come back. I just never brought it up. He didn't bring it up. I didn't bring it up.
Thank you, Jello.
We just never talked about it. To this day, I'm still curious. And I'm just like, at this point, I haven't talked to him in years, but like, I am still curious, like why he never came back. But so thank you, Sean Boogie Boy, for like making that phone call, and then thank you, Jello, for not coming back. I guess. But, like, so that's how I started doing Time Travel. Was just that, and like and I always like loved the history. And so like when I first started Time Travel, when I first started the radio, it wasn't called. I started on April 20th, 95. It didn't get called Time Travel till November of that year. My whole goal with starting on the radio was like, I want to play the songs and artists that I never or rarely heard on the radio. That was like new stuff and going back. So like if you look from my very first show, right, I was playing like, obscure artists from the 80s, and this was in like 95. I was doing both, and also the new things, because I always wanted to be like, here's what's getting missed. And then that's kind of what led to the name Time Travel.
Because you weren't fixed on a specific time.
That was part of it. And then So that was big. That was the first part of it. And then around this time, LL was ready to drop Mr. Smith. And at this time, that was like, now I'm drawing a blank. That's his like sixth album?
Sixth album, about sixth or seventh.
Yeah. So like, I'm like, that's rare to have an artist in hip hop have that many albums and still be relevant. Was unprecedented.
Right.
That was not, it was very rare. I won't say it was unprecedented, but it was very rare at that time to have that kind of a career that LL had. I was like, I want to celebrate this career that LL has. And so I put together a history of LL show to time travel through his career.
LL dude, like, he never gets a lot of credit. Like, he was dope MC, like his whole rap career. Not many people can say that.
No, that's what I'm saying. And also he was able to find a balance of like to make the hits and still be progressive as an artist. Like he was like a great blend of artistry and pop sensibilities. He was able to do both. And so like I wanted to celebrate that. And then that was how I got the idea of, I'm like, oh, this is time traveling. And so the LL show is what I got the idea to name it Time Travel.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
All right. So we spoke about a magazine. So talk to me about your magazine that you came out with. The first one that had Common Sense on the cover, Caught in the Middle.
Sort of a similar story. Same thing. A lot of big things started from my promotions company. Now, like I said, the promotions company started just because Drew from Insane Poetry, I knew him. Right connection, right? That's the same thing that happened with NUR. Right connection, right? Same thing. One of the places I would give when I would get like music from my promotions, when I was doing from labels, I would give it to like local magazines. And the key one at the time was the Flypaper in Chicago. Right. They were the rap sheet for a brief time, but there was other rap sheets, so they had to like change the name because there was a different rap sheet, and they became the Flypaper. And so I would give them, hey, here's some new whatever to review, and I would talk to them about it, like this is why you should review it. And it was Mike Shane and Raymond O'Neal, aka Promo, who owned Flypaper, and they were like, you should just write reviews. Like obviously you listen to the music and you know the stuff. Yeah. I was like I just did about the radio. I was like, write about hip hop? I guess. I like writing. I like hip hop. Sure, I'll try it.
Right.
And so they asked me to write a review for the next issue. And I at times can be like, I can be like insecure, like everyone else, I guess. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know how I feel about my writing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write 3 reviews. That way, they're going to feel guilty and have to pick one.
So you gave them no choice.
They're gonna be like they can't be like all 3 of these suck. They'd be like, this was the least worst one. We'll just use
we'll use this one.
I was like, I'm gonna write 3 and they'll have to pick one. They'll
have no choice.
They picked all 3.
Oh, holy cow.
It was the Fugees' first album, the YZ second album, Girls Been Good to Me, and Original Flavor second album. I wrote reviews for all 3 of those records. And they took all 3. And I was like, okay, I'm on to something. And then they asked me the next issue if I would interview Curious. And that was my first interview. Interviewing Curious was and then they asked me to interview Coolio. So that was my first 2 interviews.
That's dope, man.
And I learned so much from those interviews. So the Flypaper gave me that spark. And then I came up with the idea. At this time, I was really following the path of what Barbito was doing. Stretch Armstrong show, his column in Rap Pages. He was speaking about the artists that like spoke to my soul. Like that was like, if Barbito was a fan, it was almost guaranteed I was going to. You
were going to listen to it. Yes, I agree.
I was going to listen to it for sure. And so, same thing. I found out he worked at Def Jam. I called Def Jam. Was like, is Barbito there? And like
for real?
Yeah, because he was working like in the mailroom. Yeah. And so like I got him on the phone, and me and Bobby, I would talk to him about. I would get taste of his show and ask him about like, what was that song? What was that song? What was that song you played? And what was this? And so then he would give me numbers. Like he gave me like, here's I heard like Company Flow, a demo. He gave me this before they were signed.
The Juvenile Technique. Is that Juvenile Technique?
I heard that, and I was like, he gave me that. So that's how I met LP. That's how I met Jay Treads. All these people I met because I would just call Bobito and be like, here's their number. Call LP. Call Jay Treads. Call whoever.
Jay Treads, bro.
Punching words, like all those people I got.
He wound up becoming a teacher. He stopped rhyming. He became a teacher.
Yeah, I used to call him. I used to call and talk to J Tread's father.
He's so dope, bro.
Yeah,
J Treads, man.
I would call his dad, and I was like, "Is Treads around?" No, you know, like no, like no, like. So what I'm saying, like it was like I would call everybody. So I got this idea to like, you know, because Bobbito had you know, Hoppo Records and Hit You Off Management, and they had like this crazy lineup: Artifacts, Hard to Obtain, Curious, Count Bass D, you know, Doom. Like this was before Doom was Doom. He was still like just Zev Love X on his own, you know. And so I gave Zev Love X what might be his first interview as Doom.
Oh, really?
And I can't find it. I'm so aggravated that I can't. I know the tape looks like. I know I have it, but I just haven't found it. Anyway, so that all came about because I saw what Bobbito was doing, and I went to the flypaper and I was like, hey, I want to do a special on this whole movement and what they're doing. Can I do a complete spread next issue, interview all these artists and do it? And they're like, that sounds amazing. So I interviewed Bobbito, Count Bass D, Artifacts. It was only L the Sensei. Tame wasn't available.
Right.
But like I interviewed all these, and like a lot of them was their first interviews. Like L the Sensei was at work. He had like a receptionist job. He was at work at his job doing interviews, like in between taking phone calls at the front desk. So like the interview was like chaotic because he's like, I gotta go answer this phone call for work. So like we're doing the interview doing this while he's at work. So
DIY, bro. That's how it is, man. DIY.
So we did all these interviews, and it was going to be in this next issue of Flypaper, and that issue was going to come out at the '94 New Music Seminar.
Right.
They had a showcase, which is also where Judgmental of Kinetic Order was in the MC battle and won first place, which is a really big deal for an MC from Chicago to win that world competition. This is all happening, and they had a showcase to kind of do the release party for Flypaper. And that showcase had Indigenous Theory, who was Black Man Zeke, who I mentioned earlier, right? And he was in a group with a guy called Grav.
Yep.
That's Kanye's first production was on Grav. After Indigenous Theory, Grav went solo and worked with Kanye. So all these stories are connected.
I got you. I was going to get into Grav, though, too, which is good. I'm glad you brought him up.
No, so Showcase is Indigenous Theory. On that showcase is also Original Flavor. The reason why I believe Original Flavor is there because I wrote about them in the Flypaper, which is why they booked them. On that showcase, Original Flavor brought out one of their guest MCs, and that guest MC announced
Jay-Z.
He was going to go solo. Right. I have that on videotape because he did it that night.
And the original Flavor, the second album's not the original group because they had kicked out a member and they added somebody, right?
So Suave. They kicked out So Suave and added.
And they even talk nasty about him in the second album.
They do a crazy thing. They take a song that was a song with Ski and Suave called Here We Go. They redid it called Here We Go Again, replacing T Strong and having him diss the original MC on that song, which is that's a pretty unique thing. So they had this whole showcase, and the whole plan was to release the magazine that night. So some of the artists were there, like Artifacts were there, Bobbito was there, and I'm like, all right, the issue of the magazine will be here soon. Your interviews came out dope. They're in the magazine. The showcase, like it was a big deal. Like Rampage, the last Boy Scout performed.
Yeah, wow.
And, Busta Rhymes was there with him, so like it was a pretty big deal. Notorious Big, Craig Mack. Yeah, it's like it's a crazy showcase. The magazine never comes out, so they have a problem with the printer and paying it. So this issue never came out. So I had all these artists I told I promised was coming, and it never came, and I was like devastated.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And so I went back home and I was like, I can't accept this. And so Jay Bird had been talking for years about wanting to do like a graffiti magazine. He was inspired by this magazine in Chicago, like kind of unknown thing called It's Yours. It was like a hip hop magazine.
Right.
It was like you could only get it like I guess on like the on the L train. It was passed out for free on the L train.
They have copies on eBay, but they're expensive, man.
Oh, okay. I haven't even looked.
Yeah.
So
I can't afford it.
So he was like kind of like inspired by that. He would talk about it. I never thought much about it. But after this happened, I went to him. I was like, hey, do you want to start a magazine together? And that's how we got to Caught in the Middle. So we had these meetings where we would go to this place. It was called Seville. It was like this diner. We would go there every whatever day it was. Maybe it was on Sundays too. But we would go there on Sundays and meet. And we would basically come with all kinds of rap and otherwise magazines, and go, okay, what are the things that have to be that people will expect in there, and what are the things that are missing that no magazine has that we want to start. And that's why, like at the time, we didn't find any magazine that had mixtape reviews. We couldn't find it, and so
right.
I think we may have been one of the first, if not the first, to do mixtape reviews.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And there were certain things like that we were doing that really magazines weren't doing. And it was good to kind of get that feeling that we were doing something special, because when we ended up mailing copies to every issue of Call the Middle was a different theme, right?
How many issues did you do? Do you mind? Okay, but I if I'm not mistaken, Rhyme Sayers has a third issue.
No, this is the two issues we have. I've talked about the third issue because I have a lot of the content, but I've never got around.
Okay. All right, so you did two. Okay.
Yeah, we did two. And so the first one was like dedicated to hip hop radio. The second one was dedicated to hip hop magazines. So here we are, our hip hop magazine, writing about other hip hop magazines. It's like we didn't want to think about it as competition.
Right. I got you. So it was more like you needed them and they needed you. So why fight?
Artists we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to spread the word. That's all we. And so we interviewed people at rap pages and people whatever, and got their about their magazine. Rap pages ended up doing it because of that. Rap pages became familiar with us. Right. They did a review on Caught in the Middle. It's the pretty sure it's the Far Side cover '95, and they called it one of the best magazines they've ever saw.
Damn.
And what you also would notice in that issue, they start mixtape reviews. So I'm like, okay, we're adding inspiration to and I took it as a compliment. I was like, we're adding inspiration to even the big, they're one of the source from Rap Pages were like the biggest magazines. And
so was it Rap Sheet or Rap Pages that had a female owner?
I don't know about the owner, but Sheena Lester was the editor of I think her position was the editor. Like she was running it. I don't know if she owned it, but she was like running it.
Right. Like I knew one of them. Like she was like one of the first females to be running stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean the Flavor. I don't know who owned the Flavor, but the Flavor had a strong I was like a regional writer for the Flavor in Seattle, and they had a strong women staff on that. It was. We all know that there has been a rarity in how women are represented in general in the world, but in the culture. Right. Yeah, so so it was good. Magazines was one of the places where I did see some of that. First magazines and street promotions is where I saw the first times where women were having powerful presence in hip hop, that stood out. They're thriving. And a little bit in Chicago on the radio, because we had First Lady in Chicago on the radio, and she was a big important radio voice. So it was always been a struggle, unfortunately, for women to get the same
recognition and respect.
Yeah, and that's always been something I try to fight against, but it's there's always more to do. So yeah.
All right. So then, so was your magazine available in Chicago? Was it available worldwide, kind of Source, or?
We basically got it out places. We had a lot of contacts between me and Bird. A lot of the distribution stuff was Bird. He had a lot of contacts because he had a promotions company too called Shrewd that he was partners with Jello, who I mentioned earlier, who had the radio show. So it's all the webs are together.
All connected, yeah.
Jay Bird and Jello had Shrewd marketing, and they did I was doing a lot of smaller. Even if I was doing big labels like A&M, I was a passion project person. When I did promotions, I mostly did things I really cared about, and then if a label forced things I didn't like, I didn't try, or I just would quit. True was they did more of the bigger things, but also they did I'm talking Wu-Tang. They did Wu-Tang and Illegal, labels that had bigger budgets. So they had a lot of contacts because of that, and they helped spread Call the Middle through that. And yeah, so we got a lot of attention and also Rubber Room touring.
Right.
When Bird went on tour Rubber Room, he would take them, Call the Middle, and put them in different stores, in Dallas, in Texas, LA. So that's why we would get letters from a lot of our first demos came from LA. That's how I got connected for a lot of the Good Life Project Blow stuff.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, because this guy Chat from Ill Brothers was sending me he sent me OMD and 2 Mex demos. That's how I heard Dilated. Chat sent me Dilated stuff on demos before it came out. Like I still have like an unreleased Dialect song that he sent me that I don't think ever came out.
Wow, like Chillin' Villain Empire and all them dudes.
That stuff came a little
The
later, but
cuff, the cuff,
yeah,
and all them.
yeah. So I was getting kind of that because like you know, I remember like J Rock from the Beat Junkies writing a letter talking about how he kept Color Middle magazines nearby to read all the time and reference, and like he sent me a bunch of his mixtapes.
Right, that's dope.
So like, and same with Rhythmatic. So like that's how I connected with the Beat Junkies because they got the magazine, and so the magazine was creating a lot of connections that way with people, and we were set up. This distributor, Desert Moon, was a magazine distributor, and they were going to take us national or worldwide. I can't remember. But we just ran out of money for the third issue. It was a few things, but ultimately it was money. So what happened was I ended up giving our deal to someone. I'm just drawing a blank. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Stress Magazine. Remember Stress?
Yes, I have issues, I think, still with Stress.
When Stress first came out, it was around the same time that we were doing that Color Middle's feature one magazine. So I reached out to Stress and I was talking to whoever was running Stress. And so when our deal fell through, I knew Stress was looking for national distribution.
Right.
So I connected them and then they got that deal. They got the deal that was supposed to be our deal because we couldn't do it. I'm pretty sure it was Stress. I don't want to. So if I could be wrong, so just say that I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was Stress. It was like a few magazines I was working with at the time, but I'm pretty sure that was Stress. Who there should be like the third issue should say like Desert Moon distribution that came from.
Okay, yeah, because I know Stress that were a new magazine. Elemental was another new magazine that was coming out at the time. Herb was kind of still new at the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so it was like, and I was talking to all those magazines at that time. That's why I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Stress. Yeah.
All right, man. So you talk about like how you like were calling all these people, right? Like you found numbers and you would call, and that was kind of like my tactic. Like, the Source has this section called Independence Day. I don't know if you remember that. They had Independence Day, and they also had another section where they would specifically talk about a certain part all around the world. They go to a certain city and talk about like the hip hop culture, right? So I remember
Ear to the Street, I think it was called. I think that was Ear to the Street.
Yeah, that's it. Ear to the Street. You remember, man. So those were very instrumental in me and like finding artists and making connections. You know what I mean? And so I remember one of the Source magazines had a number for Rhyme Sayers Entertainment. And so I wound up calling it. I wound up speaking to Brent Sayers, you know, and we had a really good conversation. So he sent me out like a bunch of like material. He sent me like headshots, I think. I think there's 6 headshots. One, he sent Overcast from Atmosphere. He sent me Beyond Comparison album, you know, and then he sent me out this awesome catalog.
Yeah. You got one of those.
You know, okay, you know? And so like I took that, and then, you know, he also sent me like this like flyer, you know, that that flyer. Remember that flyer right there? Yeah. And so and then I still even have the Source magazine that has the article.
I got that one. Yeah.
You remember that? All right.
Yeah, I got that issue.
So what I would do is like I asked the editor Israel if I can make like if he can make a press card for me, so that way, like, you know, people can know that I'm legit. Because I know, I'm pretty sure back in the days people would call and be like, "Yo, send me stuff for free. I'll review it," and they never did. So I had to make this for me, and this is what I used as like a press pass for Insomniac magazine back in the days. All right, so this was in 90, because this was before I joined the military in 98. So this was probably like 96, maybe 95, 96. So you had moved to, I believe, Minnesota in 2002. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2002.
Okay, so your relationship with Rhyme Sayers, did that start after the Caught in the Middle magazine? Like, is it in that transition? So can you go into that, like from the magazine to Rhyme Sayers? How did that happen? And then you moving, like uprooting and going to Minnesota.
For sure. What happened was in the late 90s, few things. One, I was sort of like, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. Around 94, after Wild Style, I slowed down on searching for like a record deal, and that slowed down me making music, but I was still cared about being an artist. I still was making music, but it was just for myself. I didn't record it. I didn't perform anymore. I never performed after Wild Style, except for a couple of like guest verses. I've never done a solo show in my life to this day. After Wild Style, I just lost the energy for performing. Right. And so I was just doing kind of like this slowly just slowing down on making music. By 95, I stopped doing production too. Because I had, Gel was my upcoming producer. And when Gel got so good, when he got his SP, I was like, okay, I got a guy this good.
He's nasty, Joe.
I don't got to make beats. So
Right.
you make the beats. I'll keep doing this managerial side or whatever. So I had that. And so I just stopped making songs. Every year I was slowing down more and more. And I was also just getting a little frustrated. As I learned more about the industry, I was getting more frustrated with it. And just like I knew that it wasn't really for me, which is kind of funny that I would go work for a record label, but it's a little different, with indie. But I was just like, okay, I need to figure out what I want to do. And I was, and I think a lot of us have this thing, not even just in music, but it's an ongoing thing in music or anything you're passionate about. If you're like passionate about the arts, it's like it's hard to make money there. And so you go through that time, like, can I continue doing this? Can I afford to do this? And so I had this deadline for me that by 33, I had to feel like I was on an established path. Like I am in a career at 33. And so when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I was like, okay, it's that time. It seemed far away when I said that when I was 18, 19, but now that time is here and I am not any closer. I've done a whole lot of work, but I'm not any closer to any definitive career.
You're not satisfied, essentially.
Yeah, I'm not making any money from music. I'm not making any money from music. I mean, okay, that's not true. I'm making some music from promotions, but I'm spending more money than I'm making for sure.
I gotcha.
And like everything, I'm like maintaining my phone bill back then, long distance phone calls. Like I couldn't even pay my phone bill got cut off. Like it was thousands of dollars of phone, bills that I had. Right. That I eventually never paid. That's what ruined my credit. The first thing that ruined my credit, like was that. So like all these things, right? And I was like really thinking about, okay, maybe it's time that all my friends were quitting, making music and quitting and just getting jobs and just leaving it behind. I was like, well, maybe that's what I'll have to do too. So I was really kind of in that frustrated moment, and I was like, well, also not really getting any opportunities here in Chicago, And I was a part of that scene even though I was living in the suburbs, I was a part of that scene through Out in the Middle, through Time Travel. But in the late 90s, I started, I helped co-start Scribble Jam in Ohio. And so
which I want to get into, but don't get into that.
So real briefly, from that, I started seeing me get all kinds of opportunities. From that, even I started getting more opportunities in Chicago because of that. I thought that was funny. I was like, I was here already.
And that was Scribble Jam before Rhyme Sayers?
Yes.
Okay, so then let's get into that though, before Rhyme Sayers, because I did want to ask you about
but it's going to get there. Okay. It's going to get there naturally in the story. Yeah, it connects like everything.
Do it, my brother. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So no, you're good because how would you know that all these things connect so crazy? But so I'm like, okay, I'm kind of like, maybe it's time to move somewhere else. Because I'm saying this is the first time I've been in Illinois since 85. And now it's like I've been there for 12 years. I've never lived anywhere more than like 2 years of my life. Now I've been somewhere for 12 years. And so I'm like, maybe it's time just to go somewhere different. So I was looking for somewhere to move. I really, really was considering moving to Toronto. I went to Toronto hip hop scene a few times in the mid-90s.
It's dope.
And I know I was connected with, I'm saying I did a whole documentary. I hung out with Maestro Fresh West, Frankenstein, Red Life.
Search Without the Retson.
Thrust, Mishi Me, the who's who of Toronto hip hop. I was
Rascals.
With. Yes, all of them.
I love the Rascals, bro. Cash Crop, one of my favorite albums, Cash Crop, man.
Oh, I love the whole movement. And I was there with a video camera capturing that movement. I went to the radio stations, the shows. I was interviewing artists. I was planning on moving to Toronto just to start new. I was looking for a new scene to be a part of.
And did you do the documentary, by the way?
No, I filmed it, but I never finished it.
You got to, bro, please.
Yeah, I know. And so, in all that, I was looking for a place to to live. And of course, New York is a thing. If you're hip hop, you had, especially back then, there was New York was special. So we would go to New York. I would go to New York with friends when I could. And I did think about, can I live in New York? I was thinking about that, but I just never seen that it would really be the place for me for expenses and a lot of things. So but we would go to New York to like, Rocksteady anniversary, our Zulu Nation anniversary. And so me and Jay Pratt, who I did the radio show with, Time Travel, we went to New York. And, in New York, when you go to those events, you're getting all kinds of free stuff. People are giving you CDs and records all day. And honestly, a lot of times that free stuff, it wasn't the good stuff. It was just like, okay, not good. This okay. So we're coming back from New York and we're going through, we're at Pratt's house, going through our music, trying to figure out what we got free. And it's like, nah, I got that too. That wasn't that good. What'd you get? Nah, that was fine. He goes, I actually got one thing that's really good. I'm like, you got the only good thing? Okay. Well, let me hear. I'm like, that was just our relationship. We like give each other a hard time. I'm like, let me hear the one good thing that you got. So magically, let me hear it. He's like, okay, Kevin. Okay. All right. So he plays it, and it's Overcast. The first song comes on. I'm like, wait, you got? I snatched it out of his hand. The cover. I was like, what is this? You got this in New York? He's like, yes, I got this in New York. I'm like, when? Where was I? How did I miss it? He was like, when we were leaving the field, whatever. He's like, someone just came by and randomly gave it to me. He's like, I remember them saying like it was the last one in the box. It was the last one, and he just got it. And there's a phone number. I was like, before that first song ended, I was on the phone with Brent. I was like, really, this is how.
Brent's awesome, bro. Brent's
this is how excited I was back then. I could be so excitable to the point where it was like, okay, calm down. You're doing too much. I was just like, hey, you were giving out free CDs in New York, and somehow you missed me. Can you send it to me? You like before I said it before how I realized how ridiculous it was. Yeah. He laughed because he realized how ridiculous it was.
Yeah. And he probably said, "Yeah, hell yeah."
He's like, "Yeah, I can." Yeah. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like I didn't. Yeah, I really. This is dope. I'm listening to the first song. That's all I heard. I know I want this. I do the radio." So I told him about the radio show. He's like, "Well, I got this event coming up in a few weeks that I'm getting new stock for. So when I get that stock for this new event, I'll send you a copy." I was like, cool. He's like, I gave away all the ones, in New York. Now later, quick thing. When I talked to Sadiq later, Brent later, I later learned that he remembers giving the CD to Jay Pratt. He's like, no, I remember. We were about to leave. We were in New York too, passing out CDs. He's like, we were in the car about to leave. And we had one box left. And I was just like, hey, everybody, hold tight. I'm going to go get rid of this last box right quick, and then we'll leave and drive back to Minneapolis. He got out of his car, and he remembers, like, giving Jay Pratt that last CD, whatever. He's like, no, I remember. I was like, I was trying to figure out what to do this last one. Like, so he remembers specifically giving it to Pratt. So anyway, now back to this phone call. He's like, I got this event. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's dope. By the way, what's the event you're doing? He's like, oh, this thing in Ohio called Scribble Jam. I'm like, I'm part of Scribble Jam. That's my event. He's like, well, I'll see you next week. Like, I'll see you next week. So that was 97 Scribble Jam. That's right. I had done 96, but 97 is when other people started coming. That's when Eminem came. 97.
Right.
That's Juice. Rhymestairs came for the first time that year. So they had a merch table. I went there, met him, like, my CD. Gave me the CD. Sean didn't come that year, but Gene Poole and Musab came.
Yeah.
Beyond then.
Yeah,
they were in the battle. Yeah, they were in that first battle at Scribble Jam. So yeah, so like they came with sorry, my brain is locking right now.
Idea?
No, well, not Idea wasn't didn't come with them yet, but they came with the Battle Cats, the Breaking, Daylight, and them. So they were in the
right.
So like yes, they were always traveling with like entourage.
Who's their artist? They have an artist that was it what's his name? Abuse is dope, man. That's a dope artist, man.
Yeah. He does. You see the stuff he does now. He does stuff now. It's crazy.
He's nasty, bro.
Yeah. He's Aaron Horkey. Yeah, you go to Aaron Horkey's IG page. He's like ill. He's super ill. So that's how I met. So basically, he gave me that record there. I started playing Overcast a lot on Time Travel, to the point where I had show promoters and DJs going, "Hey, what is this you're playing?" They wanted to know more about Atmosphere. Jay Bird was doing a mixtape and I would record. I was like his engineer for his mixtapes. He was doing like these intricate 4-track mixtapes. DJ Bird is a pioneer of mixtapes. I say that that's an understated thing that doesn't get recognized. His like early mixtapes, how he did 4-track tapes, what we did in those tapes,
right,
are pretty cutting edge. I think they're pretty cutting edge. And he did a tape called Beneath the Surface where he put Scapegoat on it.
Yeah. Beneath the Surface, that was like a series, wasn't that? Beneath the Surface?
Yeah, Beneath, and it was Break the Surface, and then the other one he never did was going to be Beyond the Surface. He never finished that one. So he finished Beneath the Surface in order to go on, because he was going to go on tour with Rubber Room to take that tape. So that tape went to a lot of stores, including to DJ Eclipse, who we knew from promotions.
Right.
So
the connections, yes.
he put Beneath the Surface in Fat Beats, the mixtape in the stores.
Right.
Bird gets a call from Eclipse like, hey, I'm selling your mixtape, and everyone that buys this mixtape is coming asking about this song Scapegoat. Who was this Atmosphere? So from there, Bird connected Eclipse with Rhymesayers.
Right.
Eclipse was like, do you have this on vinyl? And they were like, we don't have it on vinyl. Like, can you get it on vinyl? They were like, we can. And that's how it started Rhymesayers doing vinyl and doing it with Fat Beats. Right. All from me and Bird doing this tape, Bird's tape, me helping out, Bird putting on a tape, Eclipse selling it, getting feedback, boom. So that's all those things is connected. And then
now, Eclipse is connected to nonfiction, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, it was all those connected. So but how me and Bird know, I did promotions for Wild Pitch. And then so I did promotions for like OC's, the Time's Up record, the first 2 Coup records, Street
Main Source was on Wild Pitch.
Right, yes. I did the second Main Source. I started doing them for that. So that 94, 95 era, Entice, I did promotions for Wild Pitch, and Eclipse worked for Wild Pitch. And that's how
Entice, Lower the Booms?
No, that's Intense.
Intense, okay.
Entice was like the woman from the down south. She had the Hush Hush tip with Method Man.
I don't remember.
She had a dope song before that, like a 90 called Black to the Point, like a social conscious track, Entice. And then she was part of Deadly Venoms with the Wu-Tang group.
So she was part of that group.
Yeah. So So anyway, that's how we knew Eclipse, because he worked for Wild Pitch, and Wild Pitch signed. They signed Tony and Dave, who was All Natural from Chicago.
Yes.
So it never officially came out, but like we knew Eclipse.
Capital D.
Capital D. Yeah. Who's the lawyer for the Golden State Warriors?
Yeah. Wow. That's all that connections. But
who just started a record label? Who signed Juice and Rhymefest through Golden State Warriors?
Oh, really? He just started a new record label?
Yeah, the Golden State Warriors record label.
Yeah. No way.
He just posted about that. Like it's been in a while, but like Capital D just posted about it. The plan for the label like today or yesterday about the unveiling.
That's dope, man.
So yeah, all those connect, and like Capital D was the judge at 97 Scribble Jam. He's one of my judges.
Okay, all right.
I'm saying the connections are just it connects forever. So Scribble Jam connected me with Rhymesayers. We connected obviously through, which is funny because when I got brought on to help out with Scribble Jam, I was like, yeah, I want to take what I've experienced at Rocksteady.
Right.
And do something different, but also, that and more. And of course,
so Scribble Jam was already established and they just brought you in, or were you part of the process of creating Scribble Jam?
That's a whole other crazy story. So
go ahead.
Gel. Gel was in high school when I was like, mid-20s. He's in high school. By now, I am burnt out on helping out groups. Like every group I tried to help up to that point ended up quitting rapping after a few years, or not taking it serious as me, or whatever. We just didn't get any traction with a label. One of the 3 things happened. So I was like burned out. I'm like, I'm never managing another artist in my life. So one of the groups Epicentral by any chance? I didn't manage them, but Gel did produce them. So like that, I was managing Gel. So like through that, I was like, helping out with, that was kind of the era where he was kind of breaking out on his own and didn't need me anymore. Most people got in the place where they didn't need me. I was never like, I use the term artist manager loosely. I was just like, I'm there for you as long as you need me. And then I never, and that's the thing, and that's pros and cons, because that's part of why you know, I probably could have been in a better place financially if I just thought about it differently. But I was just always, it was for the
It was
love.
for the love, right?
Yeah, and I don't regret that. It's like bittersweet. I have like some things like I wish I would have done a little differently, but whatever. So basically, what was I going into? So like Gel
And Scribble Jam.
Yeah. So he had this high school rap group called Mental Block, BLOKC, because it's, you know, the rap spellings, and they were called Lyrical Menace at first. And so I was like, I'm not managing any more groups. But one day I come home to my voicemail, and this is the day of the answering machine, and this is voicemail bugs me out. This is a dude, and he goes, "Hey, this is Diallo, the vibe of the Lyrical Menace, and we're coming, and we got the illness." And then a little beat played with a scratch, and then hung up. And that was it. And I was like, what the hell?
Wow. Like, talk about earworm.
Yeah, I was like, so every day I come home like, that no new message. No, I'm waiting to know what the Lyrical Menace message is. So after, I don't know how long it was, it felt like forever, I finally get a second message from the Lyrical Menace asking if I will meet with them about their group. I'm too intrigued not to meet with this group, how it was. So we go meet at one, I think it's at Diallo's house. It's 3 MCs and then Gel. He's a producer and a DJ. And and I was like, okay, what did you make these beats on? He's like, oh, just this mixer. I'm like, well, you made these beats on a Newmark mixer? He's like, yeah. So, you know, I was like, okay, all right, I'm about to break my rule. What do y'all want? You know, so I was like, I agreed to like manage them.
Right.
So I was just so impressed with like how they got my attention, the music, and then how great Gel was with a toy. I mean, a mixer. I mean, like, he wasn't. I was really bugged out at how he was, and also like their main song was called Music Maker, and it samples Parliament, but in a thing, I was like, I would have never known that was Parliament. So it was like all these layers to why I was like, okay, this group is special. All right, and all the MCs were different. They all had like.
And the name of the group was Lyrical Menace?
They were Lyrical Menace, and then it became Mental Block when I started. They were Lyrical Menace before. And then when I started management, they became Mental Block by their own accord. That was.
And did they release anything or no?
No, but I have some demos of theirs. I can sing you something.
Bro, you're gonna send me your whole catalog. I'm just letting you know.
All right, I'll send you whatever.
But I got stuff too, so just let me know and I'll send you stuff away. But bro,
no, I will. I'll sing some gems. I got some gems.
You're kind of like Ralph McDaniels. You know, I know Ralph McDaniels has a vault of videos that nobody's ever seen before, man. You know,
I want to one day. Yeah, it's like one day. Let me see the vault. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to see everyone's vault. I want to see
bad, brother.
Oh, you're good. So yeah. So like so one of them. Okay. So the MCs are Diallo, MC Brand. MC Brand was dope. It's a natural MC. And then there was Vibe, who was like more like the abstract and like kind of the thinker of the group. And then there was Chanel, went by MC What. He was kind of like he had this like personality. He brought a lot of personality to the group, and it's something, a special vibe too. He had a certain kind of personality. They were all different, and it made it work. And Chanel, MC What, his cousin is in Tag Team, the group that made Whoop, There It Is.
Yeah. So
at a family reunion, he talked to this cousin, and I can't remember the name, unfortunately, but somehow how it came back to us was, hey, my cousin's got this hit record. He has a studio in Atlanta. If we go to the studio, we can record for free.
Wow.
And we're like, okay.
That's rare.
Now I'm a skeptic. I'm just like, okay, can we talk to this? And he's like, and he got kind of upset with me. Like, I know what I'm doing. It's my cousin. I handled it. All we gotta do is go there. I'm like, well, we got a studio here for free. You know, it didn't seem like, I'm like, but what exactly is it gonna be that we're gonna go there for? But they just ganged up on me, like, well, mainly the rappers, not Gel. You're our manager. You supposed to do it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, at the worst, it's a trip to Atlanta.
Right. A new place to go and chill. Yeah.
Exactly. So I rented a car. We did this road trip to Atlanta for spring break. We get there. Now, a few weeks before that trip, I'm reading Rap Pages magazine, and they would have this section where they would feature a DJ. I think this is actually the section that might have came after they read Caught in the Middle. I could be wrong though. But they would feature a DJ about their, and then they would ask them about a mixtape, and then they would ask them what their favorite 5 records in their collection were. And so this DJ, they're reviewing their mixtape, and then when they asked them the top 5 records, one of the records was Grand Mixer DST, the song Grand Mixer, which is one of my all-time favorite songs that no one ever talks about but me for the most part. So for someone else to be like, that's their, I'm like, okay, I have to know this person.
Right.
There's a number, so I called it.
Right.
That was Mr. Dibs. And that was a 200 Hobo tape. So I called Mr. I'm like, yo, I need to hear this. Like, if you're a fan of Grand Mixer, I need your mixtape. How can I send me your mixtape? Send me as many as you can, and I will spread them around throughout Chicago. He's like, I'm making more now. The Rap Pages thing had kind of like, I sold out, but I'll make more. I'll send them to you. He never did. So now here we are. Weeks gone by. We're in Atlanta. We get there. We're like, Chanel, call your cousin so we can go to the studio and make rap songs. He goes to call this cousin who is on tour. He's not there. And we finally learned that actually he did it. There was a loose conversation with his cousin apparently, but nothing official. But he kind of figured if we just ended up showing up, that his cousin would feel kind of pressured
to let you guys do it.
But he wasn't even there.
Right.
So once everyone learned that, the rappers were so upset that they just ended up arguing the whole time we were there. Me and Joe were just like, whatever, we're going to enjoy this moment.
Right.
So as we're about to drive home, and we've been hearing them argue there because they were like so upset, the rappers. As we're looking at the, this is still, we got the Atlas in the car. I got a big giant Atlas. I'm looking at the Atlas, and and they're arguing in the back, and I'm like, y'all shut up, please. I can't concentrate. And as I'm being annoyed and looking at the Atlas, I realize, I'm like, huh. And they're like, what? I'm like, if we were to go about probably like a few hours out of our way, we could stop by Cincinnati. And they're like, what? For what? Cincinnati? I'm like, someone owes me a tape. And this trip was basically a waste. I'm going to make it not a waste for me. And I'm going to go pick up my tape. We're going to drive 3 or 4 hours out of the way to get my tape. And I was like, the way how you had me drive here and didn't even confirm that we could go in the studio, I'm not going to call Dibs. I'm just going to drive to Cincinnati and hope he's home. If he's there, he's there. If not, he's not. We'll see what happens. And that made them be quiet. They were so mad at me. They were so mad at me. So we drove to Ohio, and literally I got to a payphone. So I didn't know where he lived. I just drove to Ohio. I just drove to Cincinnati. I had no idea. I didn't know his address or anything. All I had was his phone number.
Right.
I drove to Cincinnati, called his house. His then wife answered the phone and was like, I'm like, is Dibs home? And she's like, no, he's doing a show. I'm like, oh, okay. Where's the show at? And she's like, the show is here. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the show. I'm going to get my tape. I go to the show, park in the parking lot. And before I get out the car, I remember saying this out loud. I'm like, whatever's happening here, I want to be a part of it. Because it was the first time I had been to Rocksteady. I had been to Zulu. So I had seen like cultural events in hip hop. But I had never been anywhere where I saw everything happening at the same time in front of my eyes.
All the 4 elements?
It was from my car in the parking lot, I could see 2 DJs, 4 turntables. In front of them was linoleum with breakers, people breaking. In between that was MCs on the mic. And behind that was people painting on the wall.
Wow.
I was seeing the painting, the dancing, the MCing, and DJing, and the fan onlooking all at once from my car in the parking lot. And I said, I have to be a part of whatever's happening here. That was Scribble is a magazine, is a graffiti magazine. That was the Scribble Jam first issue release party in March of 96.
Right.
So I went to the Scribble Jam. So I literally got out of the car. I walked right up to Dibs. Skip was DJing. Dibs was standing there for a second. I just stood and looked at him. I was like, Dibs? He's like, yeah. I'm like, Kevin Beacham, where's my tape? That was literally That is literally what I said to him. He's like, what? I was like, you never know my tape. I'm here for my tape. He's like, you drove here? I'm like, I drove here for my tape. Yes, I drove. He was like, you're crazy. I got you. And so we stayed, hung out. Now, by now, the MCs from Mental Block are happy. They're rapping on the mic. They're freestyling. Whatever. We stay. And then afterwards, they got hotels. We went back, and they were like, that was dope. We want to do a bigger one in the summer. I was like, I'll bring Chicago.
Yeah, so you had Chicago, yeah.
And so that, because I was like, I'll promote it on my radio show, whatever. So that's how I got involved with Scribble Jam. I just happened to drive there for the most ridiculous reason to get a tape. Right. Drove 3 or 4 hours out of the way, and that happened to be the day that was a premiere party for Scribble Jam magazine. Like, what are the chances? And
the culture in Ohio is so dope. Like the artists that have come out of Ohio, Greenhouse Effect and all them dudes, man, it's so dope, man. Megahertz, all them.
Yeah. No, yeah. So that was just. This is just my story. Just me just going full steam ahead with passion, and then things like this happening. Everything that everything I've ever done is a combination of hard work and then just like being in the right place at the right time. That's why I always say, like, it's about, like, you know, I'm forgetting, I haven't said it in a while, but I have this, like, the 4 P's, like presence, being present, persistent, patient. Like, you know, I like those.
I got you, man.
Those are like that is like the mantra for how, like, I've been successful. It's like those things, those, like, kind of the 3 P's. I think it's 4, but those are the 3 right now. But perception, 4. And perception.
There you go.
So, like, like those things are like how everything took place, was like those 4 P's basically. Yeah. All
right. So then essentially you're helping them create Scribble Jam.
Yeah.
Then during that time, you go to New York. You get your boy gets a CD that has Atmosphere. You call Sadiq. Yeah. All right. So what happens?
So what happens is, like, you know, so Jay Bird is managing Rubber Room. He was their manager. And they're, like, now starting to get some tension nationally. Record labels are trying to sign Rubber Room. There's, like, kind of like, you know, I don't know, bidding war might be a little dramatic, but there's different labels trying to sign Rubber Room, right? And they end up going with Subverse and 321 for a record deal for the Arc Technology record. And they're going to go on tour. Because of that whole, like, scapegoat thing and a connection with Overcast, Bird so we start deciding to swap shows with Minneapolis. So we're like, we come to Minneapolis to check out a Rhymesayers show, and like, I remember the show we came to. I could tell you the dates. In October of '97, I'm pretty sure it's October, like, 17th. I don't know, whenever. October of '97. We come to our first time to Minneapolis. Me, Bird. I think it's just me and Bird the first time. Maybe DJ Spontaneous came that first time too, but that show was Headshots. It was like I think the Native Ones played later on, Los Nativos. You know, they were the Native Ones still in, and I can't remember. Gene Pool. I think Gene Pool played, but I can't remember if it was like with the group Full Circle, or it was like a solo. I can't remember what he did.
Full Circle was dope, yeah.
Yeah, but Gene Pool played in some capacity, I think, that night. But anyway, the headliner was J Live. They brought in J Live.
That's dope, yeah.
And they had this guy Absolute, who was, if you know Absolute, he didn't do much, but that night he blew my mind. It's one of, like, my favorite stories of a live show is that Absolute that night, and also J Live. That was like a really big. So that's how I got interested in Rhymesayers, was going to that show to see it, as far as seeing it live. So after seeing it live and seeing how the city was behind them, I was like, okay, there's something there. So we decided, how can we swap shows? How can we get Chicago groups to come play Minneapolis and get Minneapolis to come play Chicago? So
was the Abstract Pack a part of that as well, or no? They weren't.
By the time we got there, they had already split. I think because that was like 97. That split already happened because they'd already split before the tape History. When they made the History tape, they got back together for that tape because of the passing, of Cess.
Right. So they were dope. I like the Abstract Pack.
No, yeah, they were dope for sure. So it was just like, yeah, it came together like that. So, like, you know, we started swapping shows, and then from us swapping shows and bringing Atmosphere and, you know, Beyond to Chicago, and also me playing them on the radio, other promoters started being interested. So they started getting booked for other shows because of that. So basically, and then they went on tour with Rubber Room. Jay Bird managed a tour, and it was Rubber Room and Atmosphere. On that tour, Rubber Room broke up. Atmosphere wanted to keep on touring, so Jay Bird continued touring with Atmosphere, and so eventually that led to him getting a job at Rhymesayers.
Wow.
Then like we used to do these shows. Me and Bird would do these shows at the Metro in Chicago. Like we were kind of instrumental in like doing like independent hip hop shows at the Metro, especially ones that sold out. You know, like we kind of set we opened the door for that to be a thing. I think not that we were the first, but we were helped pioneer in that particular mid to late '90s era. We helped bring a new era of that, whatever. And a lot of those we did bring Rhymesayers groups, and so through all that, basically, you know, like, you know, one day at one of those Metro shows, Sadiq just came up to me. He was like, "Hey, just want to let you know we really appreciate you helping out. Like, you know, from like, you know, playing the music on the radio, swapping the shows, these different things. Like you know, these things have you know, Chicago became like their biggest market outside of Minneapolis. You know, and that was largely because of the things that Bird and I were doing. And so he was like, you know, if we ever get big enough to hire someone else, I want to hire you next." At the time, that was just a kind gesture. I had pretty much 0% belief there would ever be a real thing. I'm like, every indie label I ever called and knew had 2 employees.
Right, because they didn't have a lot of money.
Had staff, and the ones that had staff burned out within a year.
Yeah.
Because they ended up not being able to maintain that. So I just thought that's a very kind thing for this person to say. It's never going to be anything. And now, mind you, I am 32 years old, and my goal of having a career plan by 33 is not going that well. You know, and the whole thing, like in this, because to show you, I'm always like some kind of weird creative. 33 was because 33 and a third record. I was like, hey, if I ain't by 33 and a third, I'm not in this, then it ain't meant to be.
Right.
So when I was 32, probably like, I don't know, 6 to 8 months from being 33, I'd already making my transition. Like I was working at Target as a manager, and they had been asking me to be an executive for years, and I had turned down being executive. Right. And now I was in the process of becoming executive at Target because I was like,
you were being faced with something real, like tangible.
Because my daughter was now like 7, 8 years old, you know. Right. So like, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take this executive position, and I just do rap on the side. I'm still gonna be passionate about it.
Right.
But like literally like 6 months before that, I got a random call from Sadiq and like, hey, that job I mentioned, do you want it? And I'm like, for real? A job in rap?
Yeah.
And I was like, of course. And so Rhymesayers paid to move me to Minneapolis. They moved me to Minneapolis. I moved there because they brought me there to work there.
That's dope.
Yeah. So and I had I literally, when I took the job, I'm saying when I accepted the job, and even when I moved to Minneapolis, we never discussed what I was doing. I didn't even think about it.
Wow.
I didn't know what my job was going to be. I'm saying I had no idea about. I mean, I knew a little bit about record labels because of what I had done working for, but I just thought like at an indie label, we all just did everything. I didn't even think what's my job? Like my job was to do whatever we need done.
Right. That's basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, like so my first day there, like he was, you know, Sadiq was busy, so I was just sweeping the floor and cleaning up the basement, and that was sort of like, okay, I'm down to do whatever, and so that's it. All started from that, and so like it was just like, you know, like, and then I eventually, you know, got different positions in the company. Yeah.
I got you. Are you still with them or?
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. All right, so let's do like a little like time travel, okay? So after the whole Rhymesayers thing, I know that there was a time where I guess you hit a wall and you left the country. So between the Rhymesayers thing and the pre-pandemic, recent pandemic, can you fill in those blanks of what happened?
Yeah. So like how I told you when I was about to leave Chicago, I was trying to think about living in Toronto and the things weren't going right.
Correct.
I had been there for so long. I was like, okay, here I am again. Like now Minneapolis is the place I've lived the longest. Now, you know, like I never, growing up, I never lived somewhere longer than 2 years for the most part. 2-3 years, I think the most, until I moved to Illinois, and I lived there for like 15 years. And then around the time I think I was like maybe like 15, 16 years in Minneapolis, I was like, maybe it's just time for a new scenery. Maybe I've done all I can do here. And I was just in a frustrated state, different thing where like, when you you do it all for the love.
Right.
This is when you start learning about maybe that's not a great way to say it, because it's not all for the love. You might do it
Kevin,
primarily for the love.
Let's be real too. The culture changed. It changed drastically, and it went in a really different direction.
Yeah.
Because hip hop always goes through these different changes, but I feel like there's still some sort of control that individuals can still have within that culture.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
I felt like the control was gone.
Yeah, you started, and that was kind of, I started to feel like I was feeling that in so many ways, like from like DJing, and I feel like, it used to be like in Minneapolis, this rich DJ culture, and like, every night we were all going out just playing what everyone wanted to play. You never knew who was going to do what, but then it was like everyone was just playing the same thing. Most DJs was like, because that's what the venues wanted. That's what got you the most money. And it wasn't just Minneapolis. I'm just saying that I learned that was happening
worldwide. Yes, worldwide.
So DJing I was like, okay, in order to DJ, I got to do this. I don't want to do that. Oh, in order to do this, I got to do that. I don't want to do that. So I just stopped doing things. And I didn't even think about it. But like, when I was a kid, I struggled with, before I really got into hip hop, I struggled with depression. And I struggled with even like thoughts of suicide when I was really young. I didn't realize this till I was much younger, but pretty much those things went away when I discovered hip hop in stages. Like when in '82, when I recorded myself the tape for the first time, that was literally the end of me feeling like suicidal thoughts. I still was depressed though.
Right.
But I at least had something to, when I felt that, I could go create and make music and I could feel good. Then when I was 14 and 15 with the 3D crew, I started performing and making actual songs in the studio. When I started doing that, depression went away. I didn't have depression all that time. I was performing and making songs and going to the studio and battling. I never had depression. I never made this connection to years after the fact. Right. But when I stopped making music in the 90s, the depression came back.
Right.
I never made this connection. So basically going all that phases, and like here I am now in the, and now I'm in the, 2015 or whatever. And I have all this frustration. I've stopped DJing. I haven't made music in, 15 years, you know what I'm saying? All these things, and nothing is really going right in my life. Like, just like everything's a struggle. Everything's a challenge. I'm like, I need something to be not that. And I wasn't finding it. So I was like, I need to just escape. And so I was planning on leaving the country and never coming back. Disappearing. My plan was to leave the country, get off social media, and never be heard from again. That was literally my plan.
Right.
And I was just like working towards that. Like
status.
I even had talks with my family, like I might not ever come back, so we should enjoy this time because I might not. I was serious about it.
Right.
And so and I had an interest in going back to like Europe because I was born in Germany. I was born in Germany, and I lived there for so long. And I was like, let me just try to go back and retrace some of those steps and try to figure out. I want to understand who I am more. And so I gave away most of my possessions that time. I gave away stuff from my music collection. I kept my music collection, put that in storage, but I gave away most everything else, furniture, car, everything. I just gave all that stuff away, and quit my job and everything, and just like went for it. I was like, I'm just gonna go figure out me.
Right.
And then it's just funny that through that is when I started examining my past, and that's when I learned, like, oh, I've always only had depression when I'm not being creative. Every time I stop creation, and that's when I feel anxiety and depression. So I'm like, I should start doing something creative, and I hadn't decided what it was. Even then I didn't think about making music. I thought, I should DJ more. So I started making mixtapes again. Like, okay, maybe that'd be it. And that helped a little bit, but that wasn't it. So it was like really, I just kind of refound that. So basically, yeah, I went, that whole like going away was supposed to be like me just going away, finding where I can go and never and disappear.
Right.
But it ended up becoming a thing where I went away and found out who I was and came back to be who I am. Like, oh, I want to create.
Because I think what it was is that you had a void. You didn't know particularly what that void was, but it took for you to go away, find yourself, and find out what that void was, and now you're refilling that void again.
Yeah, no, that is exactly it. Like, you know, and I never would have guessed any of that. Like, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be making music right now, I would laugh at you. I would, but now it's the main. It's like all I want to do.
Right. It's
and I'm saying, and no illusions about it being like some big thing or making money. I have no. I it's not that. I'm doing it again. It's that fine line. I'm doing it for the love and for the self therapy. But of course, I also want people to enjoy it. You know, yeah.
Correct.
But even like the fact that I'm like, you know, like I don't know, hardly anyone's listening because there's so much music out there. That doesn't discourage me.
Right.
That doesn't discourage me. The fact that there's only 10 people listening or whatever, that doesn't discourage me. I'm like, oh, 10 people. Well, I got more for you, 10.
10 is better than 0. Trust me, man. Trust me.
It's like that's my whole thing. Is it's like, oh, as long as there's like someone that wants to hear it.
Right.
Like, if it was, I think I would struggle if it was like literally only me that wanted to hear it. If I was the only person who was like, then I'd be like, oh, maybe I should stop. But as long as it's like, oh, there's 10 people?
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll do this forever. So, yeah.
Well, you're an artist, and that's what artists do. We create. And I always tell this to other artists that I've had conversations with. Like, an artist doesn't create something, let's say a painter, and then throw it in his closet for nobody else to look at. He'll even take negative, feedback from it, just as long as he shows it to somebody and he gets something out of it. And you're an artist at your core, and that's what it is. You can't be away from art because that's just who you are. You're an artist, and you have to just create. And that's when the depression and all the fucked up shit comes in is when you're not creating.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's so obvious. I have no idea why I didn't connect it.
Because we're human and we're dumb, bro. Sometimes,
I know. Yeah, because it's like, it's just so wild. It was like, how did I not recognize that when it stopped and when it started and what was it was really like, and obviously everyone can't have that. I mean, everyone could, I guess, have that freedom to quit your job and give away possessions and do that. Like, I was just in a position like, being single, which is part of my frustration is like, I'm not single by choice per se, but it's all those things, but like, okay, it sort of led me down that path, but I had no idea that path was going to lead me here. But it's exciting.
All right, brother. You want to have some fun here?
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I wrote a list of some artists. They're not all from Midway, they're mixed up, but you have so many connections that I'm pretty sure there's not going to be an artist that you're not going to know. Okay. And I just kind of want to know, like, do you have a connection with them? Do you know if they're still doing stuff, if they have anything coming out? The first one would be he's from Chicago, Taiwan Davis.
I'm a big Taiwan fan, man.
He's dope. Yeah. That's why. Yeah, he's dope.
He it's funny. He's one of those artists, like, it's so difficult to stay current with stuff these days, man. So right. Like, I try to, like, like, he's one of those people who I was always a fan of in Chicago. He did like the Progress record he had. Oh man, he's as a producer and an MC. I like Taiwan because he doesn't sound like he didn't like, there was like kind of like a few different like Chicago sounds, and and usually a lot of artists fit into one of those 3 or 4 boxes. I feel like he had his own kind of unique thing to how he did it. Even in his own crew, he was unique. So like, yeah. So I'm a big fan of Taiwan Davis, and but he's one of those artists that like over like the last few, like probably like last year sometime, I guess, I was just like, what's he been working on? I went to his Bandcamp and like found a bunch of albums. I like, what? So like, I did proud of, but no, he's like he's super dope. And
Taiwan is dope. All right, so
I like him because he's also one of those guys who's like found a way to make it work. Like he toured on his own, and he kind of followed the ethos of some of those groups that were like just DIY to the fullest.
Yes.
I respect him for that as well.
He's a DIY artist for sure.
Yeah. No, that's a dope first one.
All right, so this is a group,
Okay.
but they I don't know if they split up for anything negative, but I know that they split up, and then there was an MC that kind of rose out of that. Slaughterhouse 5. That demo's EP, Pentagon Destructo Factor, was freaking awesome. But I got to build with Lord 360, who Chris, who I think he's an awesome dude. But do you know what can you tell us about Slaughterhouse 5?
Slaughterhouse 5 is one of those groups like in like 99 or 2000. I started getting some demos. Dope, man. I was like, what? These guys, like, they were all dope, all like different, and had dope production. I can't remember how I first. It's one of those things. It was like so much happening, but they had one of the producers they worked with was Tak Fu, right? They worked with Tak Fu.
Tak Fu from Iowa, yes.
Yeah, and Tak Fu used to come to Scribble Jam. So I feel like I might have first heard from Tak Fu with Scribble, or it's like around the same time Tak Fu gave me something, and then they came by the station.
Yeah.
But no, I was a big fan of Slaughterhouse 5. Like, you know, like, and then when Lord 360, that solo 12-inch, that Hail to the Prophet single.
Yeah, Hail to the Prophet. Yeah, that was I can't talk about it, man. That, you know, that's so dope, bro.
As a producer and an MC, like he was like one of my favorites for a while. Like on the tail end of my time in Chicago, there was a handful. I was planning on starting a record label, and I was looking for artists, and like he was one of those artists. I was like, I would love to work with Lord 360. I don't even know if I ever told him that, but I know I'm pretty sure he knows I'm a big fan. I told him. Hail to the Prophet was one, like when that came out, I played that song like on rotation on time travel. Like
there's another song called Hardened Arteries, which is really dope.
No, every song he did was dope. Like everything that he ever did was dope.
He dropped 2 albums, and then he kind of did the same thing, almost like J Treads. He just decided to go. I don't know if he went educational, because I know J Treads became a teacher, but he just dropped his last second album. I think it's called The Anomaly, and that was it. You know,
and he's like a dope visual artist too. He's like just a very talented dude.
Yeah.
He had like a rock band too. He had like a rock band, something like that too. I think because he was doing. Yeah, he's just like one of those dudes. That's like everything he did, he was talented at.
Right, anything he touched, bro, was awesome. All right, so we already talked about All Natural. Yeah, but I don't know. Is there anything you want to add about All Natural?
I'm a big All Natural fan. So many great memories of All Natural. Like we hung out a couple of times. I think we even went on a couple of road trips together. Cap D's just like a super ill MC. So I'm a huge Cap D fan. Like this as a right, and Tone. I'm just a really big fan. I have a lot of great memories. I could tell so many All Natural stories. So like, I'm a huge fan.
All right, I got you. All right, so this next dude, I have friends that are really big fans of this guy, and I remember seeing his first video. Okay, so you had Rap City, right? Mm-hmm. BET's Rap City, and then you had Yo MTV Raps. Now, Yo MTV Raps, I liked more because of Ed Lover and Dr. Dre. And every once in a while, they would sprinkle like independent or underground rap here and there. But it was Rap City a lot, played a lot of like underground stuff, like shit like Saphir with like the Light Sleepers, all that. So this dude, a lot of my friends like, and that's EC Illa. What do you know about EC Illa? He's dope.
You want to know something crazy?
Go ahead, brother.
You'll be one of the first to know this. I just finished a project called Stream of Competence, a solo album. It's all EC Illa beats. He produced it all. It's all, he's a dope producer too.
Yeah, he is, definitely, yes.
Always been a fan of his production. I hit him up to see if he was still doing beats, and he's not doing beats right now. So he basically gave me permission to use any of his beats from his instrumental series for an album. And he let me pick whatever beats I wanted from there. And so I did. I did 12 songs, all EC beats that's coming out later this year. Yeah.
He's doing good?
Yeah, he's doing good, man. Yeah, like, and EC is like, man, he's like, he was an inspiration for me because in Chicago, he was the one that I like. A lot of artists were like chasing record deals, whatever. Like, and I was one of those artists chasing record deals for me and my artists. And he was just like putting out his own
on his own. Yeah, he was doing everything himself.
And I'm saying like he did the records. He had his own record store, The Tip. The Tip was one of the sponsors for Time Travel. Like he sponsored the radio show. So me and EC got a long history. Like he would come down to the show and freestyle. Like he would make sure I had all the music all the time. He would connect me with other people. Yeah, so like yeah, EC, I'm a huge fan of him as an MC. I liked him because he always rapped about like a lot of production stuff. So he would rap about sampling and truncating. So
Right.
I love when rappers have like sample based
Right.
lyrics. And then he also like he would like shout out like underground. He in a rhyme he shouts out like Castle D. I'm like, no one talks about Castle D but me and EC and maybe a few
Right.
more people. So
Right.
I was a fan of I was a fan of the way he was a fan of hip hop.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'm a fan of
Awesome, dude.
in many different layers. Yeah, yeah. Big.
All
I'm a
right.
big.
So this next group, I heard about them from an advertisement that Rhyme Sayers did because I guess they were doing a show in Chicago and they had this group on there, but like this is pre-internet, right? Before everybody and their grandmother had internet. So I always want to know, damn, who is this fucking group? And I couldn't find it. And eventually when I finally got a computer and I was able to get on Napster, I was able to find it. But this group is called Epicentral. And they had like that jousting single that had a couple of other tracks, but they're a dope group. What can you tell me about them?
So when I started doing time travel and that show started to build popularity, it became like here's the thing: a lot of shows didn't. I didn't have a quite an open door policy, but I had a fairly. You could come down to the show,
Right.
and you could give me music. I wouldn't necessarily play it if you brought it. I might want to listen to it first, but you could come down to the show. You could hang out. You could give me music if I wasn't doing a special theme and you stayed to the end of the show, you probably could freestyle. Even if I never heard you rap before. If you happen to be there at the end of the show, I would let anyone rap. Even if they were like, even if you said you've never rapped before, I'm like, if you want to rap now, you can rap right now.
That's dope.
It was just like I had like, and that wasn't normal. Like a lot of shows didn't like they wouldn't play your demos, they wouldn't let you in the station, whatever. So so that was kind of a thing because of that. As that spread around, any given week, you would have different artists come by the show. And also around the same time, Coney Rock was a dude doing a lot of like filming. He was a b-boy in Chicago, but he also was a documentarian filming, and he was doing a Chicago hip hop documentary. And he would do a lot of his filming and connections by hanging out at Time Travel. That's how I met a lot of artists. So it was like a lot of activity in this time period of the late 90s happening at the Time Travel show. And somehow through that, I believe is how, it's funny, I just recently heard this story. Maker from the producer from Chicago just recently told me the connection between how Jail and Epicentral connected, and I'm just forgetting the story. But it's somehow through, because Maker came down, he had TBA, and he was giving me stuff, and I was a big fan of the TBA stuff.
I was just gonna bring up Them Bad Apples, bro.
Yeah, Them Bad Apples and Costume. I was a big fan of Costume.
Yeah.
And so it somehow through all that, they were connected with Epicentral, and that's how I believe that. So somehow through that connection is how Jail met them independent of me. But that could just mean that a lot of times groups would, like those guys would come down to Time Travel, and I met them and I know them, but they always came when I was doing the show. And anyone would tell you when I was on the show, I was focused. Right. You could come to the show and be there for an hour, and I might only say hello to you.
Right, because you're like,
I'm like
tunnel vision.
The people who worked on the show, my co-hosts, interns, would tell you every week on Time Travel, I came with an information packet, typed out, sometimes 10 pages.
Oh shit!
It had like information about songs we're playing, artists are playing, and the background information, shows that were coming up, any news. I would call people like any news, hip hop news, but not like gossip news, but like actual about upcoming music, songs being worked on. Like it was all about the art, nothing gossipy, nothing like beef, not that. Like, but you hear.
I know what you're saying, just like information.
Information. I was like, here's about the artistry of hip hop, and I would come with like a 10 to 15 page packet every week for the show. So I was like, I wanted people to be focused. So a lot of times people would come by and I would know they're there. I know their faces, but we probably never said more than 5 sentences to each other.
Right.
So Epicentral was one of those groups who like they came enough that I got to eventually know them better. And it's funny because they recorded that song, that demo was like 4 or 5 songs, comparing, contrast, joust.
Yes.
It's like 5 songs, I believe. Only like a few of them are actually been shared on the internet. But they recorded on ADAT, and at some point, I believe it was Arcane from the group, because of my archival, I was known as an archivist. I have the ADATs. They're literally,
Damn.
they're in the room next door. I recently got so I have the ADAT Step Essential.
Where do you live, Kevin? Man, I gotta go to your house, man.
No, so yes, one of those things is I want to find someone ADAS to transfer that to Pro Tools and give them back to the group, right. And also maybe find someone that will release the Epicentral, because I'm like, it's a dope project.
Yeah, it is. It's so fucking ill, bro. All right, so this guy you mentioned before, and he's connected to Kanye West, but I remember hearing him on a mixtape, an East Coast mixtape, and it's Gravity. So, and I know he dropped that one album, a great album, and then nothing after that.
Yeah, Grav from Harlem. He came to Chicago for school, and this is a time when I was involved with Flypaper, and so was Black Man Zeke. So I was living with Black Man Zeke. At this time I wasn't, but at 91, for about a year, I lived with Black Man Zeke and his father. And they let me put a home studio in the back room by the garage. That's where my home studio was. So I was always recording in demos in their house. So in 92, me and Zeke were hanging out a lot, going to Chicago. I'm producing his demos, and we're hanging out with the Flypaper. And when the Flypaper was familiar with Zeke's demos that I was producing, and then they were like, "Hey, we got this guy moving from New York." It's how I remember it. There's this guy moving from New York. They decided, "Hey, we got a guy. Maybe we can form a group." Because Zeke was looking for a group, I think, and this guy was looking for a group too, a person to be in a group with him. So that's how Grav and Zeke became Indigenous Theory, who were part of Elements of Nature. Elements of Nature was like one of the key mid '90s Chicago conglomerates, like the Hit Squad or Wu-Tang or whatever. There was like Rubber Room,
like Old Dominion, kind of
collective, yeah. So you had Rubber Room, Children of Reality, Spillane's, Indigenous Theory, Underground Solution, Verb, Buddha, Syllabus Illis, Immortal Griffin. So yeah, I'm probably forgetting someone. Dirty MF.
Damn.
So yeah, you had this conglomerate. Indigenous Theory was part of that. Kinetic Order, I believe, Kinetic Order. So so that Indigenous Theory started working on demos. And from those demos, a couple of times we went to New York so they could work on demos, and we would stay with Grav's mom in Harlem. Grav's mom still lived in Harlem. We would go and we would actually stay at his mom's house. And so then when I went there in 94, 95, when I go to New York, it was just kind of normal to stay with Grav's mom in Harlem. We build a rapport. And so at this time, Grav was recording that first album in New York. He did part of it in Chicago and part in New York. I just happened to be out there when he was recording some in New York. He was recording at Power Play, legendary studio Power Play.
Craig G record out there, didn't he?
A lot of Queens people, because it was based in Queens.
Yes.
Liz Mercado, she was a famous engineer. I got to sit in on a Liz Mercado session as she
really
Grav record. That was amazing. Like, well, I'm watching Liz Mercado work. That was amazing.
That's dope.
She was mixing it was called Regurgitation. It became something, the name changed. It's what's it called? Sick Thoughts on the record.
Sick Thoughts, yeah, that's the one where he's dreaming, he has a dream.
It originally was a little different, a different beat. It was called, I think that was a song that was called Regurgitation, and it became Sick Thoughts. I think the lyrics changed a little bit and the beat changed. But anyway, that was a song that I heard Liz Mercado mixing. Anyway, so I was in the studio, and there was a point in time where it was both Kanye and me staying in Grav's. We're staying at the same time. This is around the time of the second issue of Caught in the Middle magazine. It's already out. So Kanye had a meeting with me in Grav's mom's living room to play me his demo, and in true Kanye fashion,
right,
to tell me why he should be on the cover of the next Caught in the Middle. Not just be in the magazine, but why he should be on the cover.
Right.
So here's a guy I never even heard of,
right,
telling me why he should be on the cover of the magazine I'm a co-owner of. And it's one of those things I know people can be like, well, yeah, sure, in hindsight. But this is not a thought that I had very often. I can't even think of another time I really thought this. Maybe to some degree with Spo. But in that meeting, Kanye asked me about being the cover, and I was like, well, I don't know if that we already got planned for the front cover for it, because the next issue was going to be the cover. It was between it was actually between Rubber Room, Grav, or EC who's going to be on the cover. And then we ended up deciding on doing a double cover. I think it's going to end up being, we're going to do an ad on the back. It was going to be Rubber Room on one side and then EC on the other, or Grav. I can't remember. It was between those three though, but double-sided cover. So anyway, so Grav, how'd it happen? So Kanye's playing me this demo, asking me about being on the magazine, but also saying I'm building a management team, asking me if I want to be on this management team, because he knows I do all these different things.
Oh, shit.
And he's like, I promise you I'm going to be a star. People say that all the time.
Right.
I remember thinking, I don't know, I answered this some way to him, but I certainly remember thinking that if Kanye is not a star, it won't be because of him. It will just be because some unforeseen force made it not possible.
Right.
Like, everything about his will to succeed, I'd never seen anyone with that. It's rare that I saw anyone with that kind of will to succeed. Right.
Yeah, he was destined to be a star.
Yeah, and I know that's easy to say in hindsight, but no, I remember feeling that. And even a moment where I was like, I should probably take him up on this offer, but I was like, I have my own passions. I don't want to.
Right.
My passion isn't to see his passion come to life. My passion is to see my passion come to life. So I turned him down. But it's like, but yeah. So that was like how I met. That was my connection with Grav. How I met Kanye. How I got to see that album come together. And it was cool because like I was known as the guy that, like, even back then people knew I was a guy that knew a lot about hip hop. So a lot of times, like when Rubber Room or whoever was recording, when they were coming to the scratch hooks, they would call me like, "Hey, here's our song title. What can we scratch for the hook?" I was a guy to call to be like, "Oh yeah, just so and so says this, so and so says this." So when Grav was working on the record, which is crazy because you think about it, that's recorded in Power Play with Liz McCardle, Kanye on the production, some production. DJ Newmark of Jurassic 5 is the A&R for Correct. He also does cuts on the record. Like this who's involved. This record is kind of crazy when you look about it in hindsight. But I remember getting a call from them, "Hey, we got this song called Down to Earth," which is a play on his name, Gravity. Like, what can we scratch? And I remember being like, "Yo, I got it. It's a new song, but it's an acapella. Royal Fam had just dropped. Something got big in the biz."
Yeah.
So on that record, you hear him scratching Gravity. On the song, he goes, "I come down like force gravity." That's what he says. And I was like, you can scratch that. They ended up only scratching the gravity part, but that was like the first time I ever gave an idea that became on a record. It was that.
There you go, man.
I was like, okay, that my idea made it to a record. And then that song has a song called, I think it's "Come On," but we all got in the booth. Like, it's like me, basically everybody on that song, line for line, what's it called, line for line, line to line,
line for line,
line for line. Yeah. Pretty much everybody on that song got jam packed in the booth. We were like literally stacking each other. We're like, come on, like you know those '90s cooks.
Right.
So bad they didn't use.
Oh, so you were part of that?
But it is not being used because it was so bad. In the recorded version, I think it's just Grav. They redid it because we were all over. It was I could tell it was chaos. Everyone was, come on. Okay, all right. And I'm not even that kind of guy to be like yelling. I don't yell. So it's like, I'm not trying to. So yeah. But anyway, but it was cool to be a part of that record, especially in general because I was like a fan of Grav. But then also just like, for the historical content that now that we know what that album was and what it was. And I don't know if we're exactly sure. I mean, I know I've talked to Grav. I'm just drawing a blank, but I don't know why he didn't do a immediate follow-up record. I mean, I know the label kind of folded and it was just like, it was hard to,
Was the label Correct?
Yeah, Correct. And Correct was like one of those labels that was like dope by the A&R, and it was just like someone that was, family came from money.
Yeah. Because I mean, they had Manish on that.
Yeah. Which was and Manish was dope, and also Manish was one of my all-time favorite rap groups and albums is Funky Town Pros, Reaching a Level of Assassination '91. And Devastating from Funky Town Pros did a couple of tracks on that Manish record. And from them coming on my radio show, because Jaybird did promotions for Correct Records.
Right.
So they came to Chicago a few times and came on my radio show for interviews. That's how I connected with Funky Town Pros directly, and how I got the DAT to their unreleased music. So that's like the connection.
I know all these connections, man.
So yeah, it's all connected like that. So yeah.
All right. So this next group, they're not from Chicago, but I think you know who they are. They did some tracks with dudes from the Far Side, Rusty Pelicans or Rusty Peas. You know anything about them?
Yeah. They were from Milwaukee.
Yeah, dope group.
And they actually, I think I heard about them because Sage Francis. I think it was
It's crazy how like Sage Francis from like, I think he's from Rhode Island or and then he knows like Rusty Peas, and then now he connects them to you somehow. It's crazy how the hip hop culture is, man. Sometimes
I was trying to book a show in Chicago. It's funny. I do these things like I can't even remember what the hell I've done, but like I ended up getting like I was trying to get the Subutones and Sage Francis.
Yeah, Subutones.
And ended up getting stopped at the border, so only 6'2" made it. But anyway, we did this show for them in Chicago, and then we also arranged for them to do a show in, like, if I had them in town, especially from Halifax, Canada, I was like, let's do something else. So we also arranged for a show in Milwaukee. And I think it was a show, and Rusty Peas played that show in Milwaukee. So that's how I think I first heard Rusty Peas. And then, like, I would like from there, I started getting their music and would play them on the radio show, in Time Travel. So like Rusty Peas, one of the super cool dudes. Yeah.
Rusty Peas is dope. All right, so this group, and it's a group, and also like this individual broke off and went solo, but I think he's a transplant like Grav from New York. Okay, but they were first the Mental Giants, which is Akbar and P. Lee.
Yeah, Parker Lee. P. Lee
so are they originally from Chicago, or are they from New York and went to?
They're both from New York. They're considered two of the main people, P. Lee and who brought hip hop to Chicago. Like,
okay, so the Mental Giants.
Yeah, P. Lee Fresh is like instrumental because like he had a show on WNUR in the early '80s. He was like one of the original like hip hop DJs on NUR, one of the first ones. But his show, but he like would bring New York to that show, and him and So like I remember like listening to like P. Lee Fresh on NUR when I was in high school, and him talking about like things in New York and like telling stories, and like he was like, because Time Travel was like an educational rap show where I would give you all more details than any other rap show you probably ever heard in your life. Right. Part of that was influenced by what I heard from P. Lee Fresh, but he would do it. I just ended up doing it more frequently than P. Lee, but he did it a couple of times. I was like, okay, he's giving some background information about these artists. And so that was an inspiration. And so like, no, Mental Giants. And like, again, like I'm a huge fan of Mental Giants. Akbar is like one of the most, there are certain people.
I know, dude.
Who are just like, he was born to MC.
Right.
His voice, his flow, his right. He's literally a perfect MC. Right. There's a certain people I consider perfect MCs, like Akbar, AC Alone. It's like when they're like their voice, their flow, their content, their improv, they're great at every aspect of MCing. Pharoah Monch, like there's a certain MCs who are just like, okay, you are just like the genius. Like there's like certain people I think of like they're perfect in every way as MCing, and Akbar is one of those. Yeah, so I'm like, and P. Lee's just like beyond just like how dope he was as like spreading the culture. Like some of the first hip hop shows, he was like booking some of the early shows in Chicago. He was him and Akbar were early on the graffiti scene in Chicago. So that every part of hip hop there, the graffiti scene, the radio scene, the MC DJ scene, P. Lee as a producer, everything. They had an early music video. Like they pioneered pretty much everything.
Yeah, was that the Jeepers Creepers?
Yeah, it was like it's a 2-song.
Yeah, Jeepers Creepers and something else, right?
Yeah.
All right, so this next. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother. Keep going.
Mental Giants. I'm a huge fan of and P. Lee just passed away recently. So
R.I.P. R.I.P. My man.
Yeah.
All right. So this next group, you had brought them up. and I remember again, like in the days of Napster and all that, wound up getting like one of their albums, and that's Them Bad Apples. What could you tell me about Them Bad Apples? They're dope, man. Really fucking dope group.
Yeah. So Them Bad Apples came because yeah, because Maker was just a producer doing a lot of stuff, and they were like from coming from a different part of the town, and so yeah, they were just giving me these CDRs of different songs, and like I was like really impressed with the production and just also the MCing. Like they were a diverse crew. And then they had a separate crew called Costume, like Vertebreaker and Concept were also part of Them Apples, but they had a separate thing. And I was a really big fan of the Costume record, like that record. Like when I did my Genius record that I finally put it out a few years ago.
Yeah.
It should have came out in 2001. Back then, when I was going to do the album in 2001, one of the only features I wanted was Costume. Because I was a big fan of Costume. And when I did it a few years ago, I still asked, and mind you, neither one of them make music right now, but I got them to make music again just to do a song with me.
Damn, that's dope.
That's how much I love Them Bad Apples and Costume and Maker, because and Maker produced it. Like no, I'm a huge fan of what they were doing. Like yeah, and like I saw them live. They did a couple of shows at that time. Like I think I saw them at like the was it the place called the Furama, I believe it was. But like yeah, no, Them Bad Apples were just dope, and Maker just like such an amazing producer. Like I'm a huge Maker fan. Like he's just like just to see how he developed as a producer is great. Like like when I was gonna start my record label in 2001, my second release was supposed to be a Vortal from Ken Ox solo 12-inch produced by Maker.
Oh, that would have been dope, man.
We had the beats. Vortal had the beats. It was all good to go. But if you know the Cannibal Ox song "Life's Ill,"
yeah, "Life's Ill."
Vortal's not on that song, but what Vass is talking about Vortal having that situation, because he got his jaw damaged, where he couldn't record for a few months.
Right.
That was the time he's supposed to be recording that single. He just couldn't make music, and then I got a job at Rhymesayers, and I moved, and I didn't do the label, so that's why it never happened. But no, he had the beats and everything. Like he was going to do 3 songs. A 3-song single.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Vortal's nasty too, man. That's another crazy.
Oh, huge. Yeah. Man. That dude is when that dude's in the zone, he's magical. He once came to Time Travel and did this freestyle, this improv to a Screwball beat, Screwed Up. I love that beat. A Beat Nuts produced track. I think it's Beat Nuts. But he just blacks out and does this, Vortal's special. He's a special individual.
Right. This next group from Minnesota, they're kind of affiliated with Rhymesayers, but when I first started getting into them, I don't know if they were a part of Rhymesayers and they broke off and they started their own little like crew. It's Cancer.
They were I don't know if they were ever technically part of Rhymesayers, but they were like some of those early headshot shows. They were definitely on shows together, and then Ant was doing some production for Cancer.
Right.
So there was a connection from that. But they were like, they were sort of at the time where Headshots was sort of dissolving.
Right.
Cancer was sort of coming up. But there's other connection because like one of the members of Cancer is Unicus.
Unicus, yes. And
Unicus, was already doing music with Beyond before, I think even before Rhymesayers existed. So they had a connection before that.
So they were in a group before.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, it was I think they were both in the group called the Labyrinth. I think that was Unicus. It was in Labyrinth, but I'm pretty sure that Ant predicted it because he was in a group called right before Beyond went solo. He was in that group Labyrinth, and I'm pretty sure Unicus was a part of, and Ant was a producer for, or at least one of the producers for. So yeah, so they had this long history. And they had some kind of there was some kind of falling out between Cancer and Rhymesayers. But I bet that was before I moved there, so I don't know the details of that. But yeah, but they were definitely a part. And when I moved there, Cancer was still very active on the scene. And New MC, he competed at Scribble Jam. He was a battle MC in the Twin Cities. It was we had when I first moved there was a place called the Lowering Pasta Bar, and they did Monday Night Hip Hop. It was a dope DJ night. As the first place I ever DJ'd in Minneapolis. They invited me to DJ there because they saw me at Scribble Jam. They knew me from Scribble. And they had a MC battle there on Monday nights. And for a while, New MC of Cancer was like kind of like the reigning champion for that battle for a while.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
All right. So this group, I know for sure, you know, I mean, they're connected to everything, all up and down Midway. Okay. Micronauts. So that's, you know, I Self Divine and Cool DJ Akeem.
As the connections continue.
Yep.
that trip to Atlanta with Mental Block.
Right.
There was a guy there was some people we knew from North Chicago. DJ What For and Cloud9 was MC Tabari. His name was Cloud9. Cloud9 was an incredible MC. Like, he was the only person I knew that could like recite Freestyle Fellowship verses word for word. Like, do the styles and knew the words. Like, he could like do Micah 9. I'm like, you can do Micah 9 verses?
Micah 9's hard to do, man.
Like, you can't, the average human being, even the above average human being can't do Micah 9 verses. But,
Micah 9's the next level.
But I've seen Cloud9 do Micah 9 verses, like rap along with Micah. I'm like, okay, you're special. But and also just like on his own, he was a MC. He later on was a producer. He produced some like theme songs for Time Travel. Anyway, when we were in, one of the few things we did while we were in Atlanta trying to do songs in the tag team studio was we connected with Cloud9 and What For, who were living out there at school, whatever. And they had a group, they were down with out there roommates or whatever called the Mighty Blood Fang. Mighty Blood Fang were a dope group that worked with the Single Minded Pros who were from like Boston, but were living in Chicago, Rude One and Doc West. And they were like connected with Mighty Blood Fang. So all that was connected. And in that, when I was hanging out with Blood Fang, What For, and Cloud9, they gave me a Micronauts cassette.
Oh, shit.
So Deep I Never Fell.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is dope. So I started playing that on my radio show. Then because of like time, you know, because Time Travel, like a lot of groups were listening to Time Travel, and like the Opus, you know, they were producers for Rubber Room, then they were became Opus, did this production stuff. When they worked on their first album, you know, a lot of times they would like listen to Time Travel, and that's where they got like the Moment and Opus. A lot of times listening to Time Travel is where they got ideas of artists to work with. Like I was helping the Moment connect with artists to like some of those songs you hear on the Moment records, if they're not Chicago artists. Initially, a lot of times I was one of the people connecting them with like a lot of people, like with Doom and Aesop, and I don't know if all those, but like Sage and Stubby Tones, like a lot of those came from me. I don't know if all of them for sure, but I think most of those, if not all those, came from me. Rhyme Sayers came from me directly or indirectly, for the most part. And so when the Opus was working on their first record, they through Bird and Rhyme Sayers, they connected because I Self was connected with Headshots. Right. So when it was like the song The Basement from the Opus, that came from the Opus hitting me up about Aesop and me connecting them with Aesop.
Damn.
And then they connected with I Self independently to do that song with Murs, Lord 360, and I Self, right? And so when I went to the studio when they were working on that record, I Self happened to be there, working on his song, and so that's the first time I got to meet I Self, and he gave me a tape of he's like, this is our album coming out, and it was just like if you go to the studio back then, you would just get a cassette tape, a clear studio cassette tape with no writing. That's all it gave me. It was
no label on it or nothing, right?
It was nothing. I had to remember the artist name. I had none of the song titles. But he said it was coming out soon. I remember listening to it, thinking it was dope, but I'm like, I don't even know what the songs are called. So I put it to the side. I was like, I'm gonna put it to the side. When it comes out, I'll play it because it's dope. Right. And it never came out. I never got it. It was Return of the Traveler's record.
Yep, the Traveler. Yeah.
And then I ended up forgetting about it because I was getting so much music that I just had moved on. So it wasn't until they came back with the deal with Subverse or whatever and did the Obelisk movements. And then we booked them in those shows, the Metro shows I told you about. We ended up booking them. It was a show we did. We brought MF Doom to town and Big Just. Me and Just co-hosted this event. And Mike and I.
Now, was that just after he left that cultural split? Okay.
Post co-flow. Because like I said, Bobbito connected me with LP. Right. And so I went to New York. When I went to New York after I got connected with LP, I went there for Rocksteady, for Zulu anniversary. I called LP and we met. And I went to his apartment and he lived with Big Just. They lived together.
Right.
When this was before Fun Crusher came out. And they had just finished Fun Crusher.
Is that Fun Crusher or Fun Crusher Plus?
Fun Crusher.
Okay, the original. Okay.
They had just finished Fun Crusher like that week. Like, like I'm saying, maybe like that day. Like he had 2 copies.
The masters, right?
Of a cassette master of the album. And I ended up, the person I went to New York with abandoned me, stranded me.
Damn.
And so I ended up staying at, with LP and Just their apartment overnight. I remember they showed me the 8 Steps to Perfection music video. They had just shot it. Already the Rugged Man's in that video. It never came out.
Didn't he do like the vocal? Didn't he do like the what do you call it? The ad libs?
He did that on a different song, but not 8 Steps. He's just in the video. I think. I don't think he's on the ad libs. He's on the ad libs for the next single. I can't remember what song it is. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, so I was hanging out with LP and Just, and that's how I connected with Just. I brought some rare demos with me in that trip. I had Dr. Octagon, maybe 8 months before it came out, and I had this artist Immortal Griffin from Chicago.
Right.
So I was just playing demos for LP, and LP was like, "If you make me dubs of those things, I'll let you have this Fun Crusher tape."
What the fuck, bro?
So that's why I was one of 2 people that had Fun Crusher. So I was one of the first, not the first people, probably between me and Bobbito to play it on the radio first.
Right.
Because I had one of the 2 copies.
Wow,
I have the copy of that tape. So that's how I knew Just, and so we stayed in touch. And so now years later, we brought him to Chicago to co-host this show, and he did a short set. He performed a 10-minute set, and Doom performed, and Micronauts performed, and their show was amazing. Seeing Micronauts live, I was like, "Oh, these guys are the truth." And then so when I moved to Chicago, when I moved to Minneapolis, I definitely there was that time period around obelisk movements and a few things where I think Shaka was one of the best rhyme writers in the world. I saw the song "Decapitation Part 3." That song is a work of art lyrically, and there's other songs like that too.
He's incredible.
But he's in that zone. When he's in that zone, when he just connects the words and his poetic value is so. I have had long talks with myself about how much I appreciate. I got him. He's very diligent about writing everything. He uses those those composition black and white kind of
those notebooks, composition notebooks. Yeah.
He uses those. He has stacks of them. I have scanned half of them. I've got him to give them to me, and I have them on my laptop, scans of his lyrics from his history of lyrics. Because I'm a fan. I've scanned his rhyme books.
That is crazy, man. That's like scanning a graffiti artist's black book. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. No, I'm saying there's songs in there that they never recorded.
Can you tell me why they never made a Dino Spectrum Part 2?
I think it was just that
shit was so dope.
You know what? It's funny. I tried to get it to happen. It almost happened. A few years ago. There's a song there's a song on an Atmosphere album with all 4 of them, because I was working on a second Dino album.
Oh, really?
But then I went to Europe. I left. It fell apart pretty much when I left.
Oh shit, man!
I was working because Dino Spectrum was never on vinyl.
Well, I don't know if it was on vinyl. All I know is that I got it on CD and I did a review on it in Insomniac, and it was awesome.
It was never on vinyl. I got it on vinyl maybe 5 years ago.
Right.
I went and found the reels, paid someone to bake the reels, transform the Pro Tools, have someone remix them down. Go listen to the new versions of Dino Spectrum. If you haven't listened to it in a while.
No, I haven't in a while.
Dude, go listen to the remaster. It will blow your mind how much better it sounds.
Now, is it available non-vinyl? Because I don't have a record player.
No, I'm saying we did the remasters on Spotify too.
Oh, is it on? Okay, I'll check Spotify.
It's on all streaming sites. It's the remaster version. Like I literally had them because I'm saying that was like when they recorded that, they just went and bought equipment like that. Overcast, Comparison, and Down the Spectrum. Those 3 records were all recorded like in succession, like immediately after around the same time, or after each other. And they bought all that equipment and taught themselves how to use it by making those albums. So they had no idea about engineering. They just did it on their own.
Right.
They did a good job.
They did a great job, bro.
But go listen to how it sounds now when a real engineer does it.
Okay.
You can just hear. And also, when I did it, I included like 3 songs that were never released. There's new songs.
There's new songs on there?
Including a I Self solo song that's amazing.
Oh shit, man.
I put that was like I have been wanting to do that since I first got the job at Rhymesayers. Like doing that was like something that I was eventually like I have to eventually get Down the Spectrum on vinyl so I can own it on vinyl. Like that was like I connected with Abuse, had Abuse do new artwork. Like I went all out to get that. And part of that was we were going to do that and then announce a second Down the Spectrum record. And they started recording. I was going to kind of mastermind it. Like I had talks with all the MCs. Like it only will work if you approach it in this way. Like I don't want you just to all rap together. I want a Dino Spectrum record.
Yeah.
So we had meetings and talks about how to approach, and I was going to be like kind of trying to like help navigate that. But
you like a director. You're going to be the director.
I was going to try to be like a director for that. It's one of those things like, I have a connection with all those artists, involved, and they all kind of trust my vision to some degree. So like they feel okay with me kind of like, okay, being involved in that way. So like, yeah, and just fell apart. Like it's like anything else. There's so many things going on. So we never got around to it.
All right. So, all right. You have so much information, Kevin. Oh my lord!
Anytime I'm gonna have.
No, and it's awesome though. I'm not. Oh my god, man!
I could do this all day. So
if Johnny knew, if the technology for Johnny Mnemonic existed, I would just say, send me a thumb drive, please, of your brain. You know what I mean? All right. So these next 2 groups, I'm gonna lump them together because they're both from Canada and they're like favorites of mine. The Rascals and Ghetto Concept. What do you? Sorry, I had to go there, bro.
No, I'm a big fan of both of those. Rascals is one of those groups that because they're from Vancouver, right? They're from Vancouver. I have a Vancouver
but they moved to T Dot, I believe, because they referenced T Dot a lot.
They're from Vancouver, but so like when I was in at least one of my trips to Toronto, 95, 96, 97, I did like a few trips in that time frame. One of them, the Rascals were there. I had them on video performing live. And they were like, and I was connected to their manager, I believe, directly, who was sending me stuff for time travel. So, because the producer was Chemo.
Chemo, yep.
Yeah, Lab Rats.
He used to break too.
Chemo, I don't know if I knew that, but around this time,
they were a breakdancing crew first.
I know. I think I did kind of know that. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Like that's like a lot of those. That was like the era. Like a lot of like the Far Side where the dancers became like.
Right.
You would sing it happen more often. I mean, it happened in the late 80s or 90s. Like Ziggy was one of those groups that, were dancing.
Ziggy was dope. I like Ziggy, man.
Stretch from the Mop Tops and the Wise Guys. So yeah, it had been done before. UTFO was probably the first example. Like they were dancers for Houdini, then became, so like that's a history of that, right? But wait, I got lost. What are we talking about? We're talking about
the Rascals.
Yeah. So Rascals. So like. No, I was a fan. Like, like they had some dope records at that time, like that late 90s, mid 90s. They had some dope records. Dreaded Fist was like
Dreaded fucking Fist, bro.
That's the one I used to play a lot on the radio show was Dreaded Fist. And then I saw them live. And they had a dope live show. And I was saying that this was a time period where a lot of labels would do like remix contests. And so I remember like me and Jill would do some of those remix contests. And one of them was like for AC Alone's All Balls Don't Bounce for Mic Check. And me and Jill did a remix for it, but Chemo from Lab Rats from Rascals won that. I'm pretty sure he won first place for that remix contest. That's how I first heard about Chemo.
And what did he do? Do you remember what he did?
It was a Mic Check remix. Yeah.
So everybody had to do the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. It was. It's like the 12 inches out there in the world. Acapellas on a 12-inch. Make a remix. And like then they released a 12-inch with his remix on it.
Damn.
So they did a remix 12-inch of I think the top 3 winners. Me and Joe never even submitted. We missed the deadline. We never even submitted ours. But I have it. I think I have that remix. So yeah, so that was the Rascals. Now, Ghetto Concept. Okay, in UR. When I started in UR, they had a record. I had my own collection of music, so I didn't really need their collection. But at some point, I was like, well, let me just see what they got. And they had like this section upstairs with the records, and it's like, okay, I have most of this stuff where I don't care. It's like the major label and stuff like that. It's fine. But then I learned that there's a big, like, I think it was like Jail used to he'd be there for like 4 or 5 hours at a time. And so Jail just started exploring, and other people started exploring in the basement. We found there's a whole other music room in the basement. That's where all the real records were at from the 80s and everything. And it was just thrown in this room. It was a mess. Records were just thrown everywhere. So we got permission to organize it.
Oh, wow.
And that if we organized it, we could get some free records. We could take some records home from the collection. Like, because there was like doubles and triples down there. So we could take like extras. And so Ghetto Concept was one of the records I found down there. Easy on the Motion.
Yeah, man.
And when I heard, I'm like, that record is just the production, their style, and just the way they. Wait, what's the B side? Easy on the Motion and Hard Copy. Woo! Both of those songs are so. That's one of my prized 12 inches. Is that 12? I love this because my prized 12 inches are not about value. It's about the value, how the music means to me. And that Ghetto Concept record is a favorite of mine. Hard Copy, Easy on the Motion. So, I'm a big fan of them. And so when I went to Toronto, one of my second time, one of the groups that was coming up was this group called Red Life.
Yeah, Red Life. Aren't they affiliated with Ghetto Concept and Rascals? Yeah.
So I was like, able to like interview Red Life. I went to like one of their houses, interviewed them at like their mom's kitchen table. Interviewed Red Life, and they gave me some songs. One of those tapes they gave me was a single called "Who's Gonna Take the Weight," original and remix. That song came out on 12-inch. There's a B-side song that never came out, as far as I know, called "Forescope."
Yeah, you put it. You put it out.
Yeah, like I don't think it never was available, so I put it out, and because they gave it to me when I interviewed them in their mother's kitchen, wherever it was, they gave me that tape, and it has Ghetto Concept. And that song was super dope.
It's serious, bro. It's a serious song.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that whole like era of Toronto hip hop. I mean, in general, I can talk for hours about Toronto hip hop, but Ghetto Concept.
Trust me, I know Mathematic, Danny O, all those dudes, man.
Man, no, the Frankenstein era.
Frankenstein, bro. The UV, I think was one of the EPs. UV, yeah, man.
Yeah, so there's like so much stuff that like. But yeah, Ghetto Concept and Red Life and all that. Mishi Me, was the first artist I ever heard from Toronto, and that song On This Mic is people always talk about how important 1988 is. It's one of the best years in hip hop, and I agree. And I also say, which is not popular, one of my favorite rap songs in '88 is Mishi Me On This Mic. Mishi Me and LA Love. That song to me is rap perfection. The way she rides the beat, switches from like reggae chatting to MCing, right. The writing, like her elegance, perfection. That beat, the Beat Factory production.
Right.
Yeah. So.
All right. So I'm gonna group another two like artists and groups. They're Chicago groups. One a personal favorite of mine. Okay. They dropped 2 albums, but I don't know if I heard their second album. Because I don't know, I like how you say sometimes you get distracted and you just leave things to the side. Yeah. But they were a dope group, Prime Meridian, and then the second group would be the Pacifics, which is more like a crew, I guess. Pacifics is more like a crew, I guess.
That's interesting. It's funny. You're like, man, you did your research. I know that, but also you're also picking things that it's like that tie these things together. So. Prime Meridian. I remember the first day I could tell you the day probably if I thought about it, but it's May 95. It was a thing called Mayfest in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. And I was at Mayfest 95 because Rubber Room was playing and I was asked to go take pictures for Caught in the Middle. That's why I was there. Tone B. Nimble ended up being the DJ for Rubber Room that day. I think Tone B. Nimble from All Natural was the DJ for the group that day, I'm pretty sure. But Prime Meridian played that day. And also a group called Monastic Cypher played that day.
Damn, I never heard of them.
On that same channel where I shared that Red Life song,
yeah,
I share a Monastic. Go listen to the song Monastic on that same YouTube channel. Yo, that demo was crazy. 4 songs I played. I think I shared Disaster Plight. This is from the title. I was like, they performed first, and I was like, okay. Well, if you perform at a show in the 90s, I'm gonna walk up. If I like it, I'm gonna be like, can I have that tape? Or do you have a tape?
Right.
And I went up to them, and they were like, and they gave me that tape. And on the tape it says they wrote, Mayfest '95. So they gave me that tape. I saw Prime Meridian, got their number, and stayed in touch. And they started giving me music. Around that same time I saw Prime Meridian, was this thing in Chicago, was the Props Awards. And I believe they I don't know if it was the first or second Props Awards, but I think I saw them play at the Props Awards. Might have been the second one. But I remember they had the song I Can't, the KRS of I Can't Anytime on the Spot Rhymes.
Yeah.
And they did that song. I mean, and that's like I don't know if that was the first song they did in the set. I can picture them performing that song in my head the second time I saw them. Probably after Mayfest. They did that at the Props Awards, 1 or 2. And so how it connects though is after we established with Rhyme Stairs, we're going to trade shows. We traded with Rubber Room first. The next time we brought a group to Minneapolis, it was Prime Meridian. We brought Prime Meridian to Minneapolis to open up for a Rhyme Stairs show. So we did a road trip with them. So we had a connection. I'm a big fan of Prime Meridian, and that album, that first
Meet
album,
You in Greenwich.
Yeah, that man is so because when they performed at Mayfest, they did give me a tape. They gave me a tape that had Mental Void.
Mental Void, yeah.
And what's the other one? They had 2 songs. I think they both begin with M's too. What the hell? But I used to play those songs heavily on Time Travel. So yeah, big. And so Pacifics.
Yes.
They're one of those groups. I think I heard about Pacifics because I think someone in the group or their manager, someone was going to U of M, where NUR is, that's their station. And they were involved with I can't remember what it was called, but it was like the Asian Arts Club or something club of Northwestern.
Right, because they're Filipino, I believe.
Yeah. So there was like some kind of club, and through that club, they brought the Mountain Brothers.
Mountain Brothers.
So they brought the Mountain Brothers to do a show in Chicago, I guess, and maybe on campus, and they brought them to Time Travel. That's how I met the Mountain Brothers.
Yeah, Mountain Brothers.
And then and that's how I met. I'm pretty sure that's how I met the Pacifics. And so they gave me a song, This Side of the Rhyme. I don't know if it ever came out, but there's a song, a single they were going to do. They gave it to me on mini disc. Just a damn, mini disc was a thing for a hot second.
Back in those days, yeah.
Yeah. So there's This Side of the Rhyme, and the This Side of the Rhyme remix is by Chops of the Mountain Brothers. I used to that version was my preferred version. So I used to play that version on mini disc on Time Travel. So that was kind of like my opening to Pacifics, and they were dope.
Yeah, they were dope, man.
Yeah. So that's kind of like my biggest memory of Pacifics. Is like they connected me to the Mountain Brothers, and they had some dope demos. And even after that, I'm saying they did dope stuff on their own too. So they didn't need the Chops production, but they were dope on their own too. But
yeah, Paper Chase, that song, I love that song, man. Such a great song.
Yeah. So
all right, so we got like 4 more, and then we'll be done. Okay, so this group's from Cincinnati, Ohio. E.com. Do you know anything about them?
E.com?
Yeah, E.com.
You might have got me on that one. I don't know what that is.
Okay, all right. So I'll skip that one. I'll send you something from
E.com. What era is that? What year is that?
That's like late 90s, early 2000s. They're kind of affiliated with Greenhouse Effect and all them dudes.
Yeah, it's possible that I know something. That era. I'm saying that era is like I'm doing the radio. I'm doing Super Jam,
Hold
And
on.
so yeah.
Keep talking. Keep talking.
Oh, I'm doing the radio. I'm doing Scribble Jam. I was just getting so much music given to me. It was so hard to like keep up with everything because like I was just getting like bombarded with music, which was great. So it's just possible I just got like I'm sure one of them probably gave me a tape or something that Scribble Jam. But a lot of times that would happen. People would give me a bunch of stuff at Scribble Jam, and then I was running around all day, and people would steal my CDs. So I would like have them hiding somewhere, then I would come back and they'd be gone. So a lot of times people gave me stuff that I never even got a chance to listen to. So who knows? But yeah, no, I don't know that group. But I'm curious though, because that whole era of like there was so much dope talent in the Cincinnati and Columbus, Ohio that was coming to Scribble Jam. And there was like so much great groups there. Yeah.
Yeah, I got this. I got the CD. I'm gonna show it to you. The name of the album is called Obsidian.
Let me see it. Yeah, that doesn't look familiar at all.
And then that's the back.
Yeah, that doesn't look familiar at all. I'm curious to hear that. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's dope, man. They're part of the Waitlist, the whole Waitlist crew.
They had some dope affiliate groups. And yeah, there's like so much great music. Yeah.
Dude, I didn't think I would get you, but I did. I got you. I didn't think I would.
Human.
No, hey, we're all human, dude. We're all human. We're all human. That's awesome, actually. All right, so this guy, one of my best friends, but he's affiliated with so many people. Q Nikon.
Who's that?
Q Nikon.
I don't know who that is either.
West Coast.
Q Nikon?
Q Nikon.
I don't think I'm familiar.
Yeah, he's done stuff with Black Silver. You know who Black Silver is?
Yeah, because it's with Kool Keith stuff.
Yeah, he's done stuff with Kool Keith. He's affiliated loosely with like Ice-T. He's a West Coast guy. He's from Oregon. Q Nikon.
Oh, you know what? I vaguely know, but I can't speak enough to know. Like, yeah,
right.
Because like it's like I'm trying to think what project. Well, who'd you just say he's connected with? Who you said Ice-T? I think I know from Ice-T thing. I think.
Well, I mean, he did stuff with Black Silver and Kool Keith called the Analog Brothers. He did
Analog Brothers. Yeah, I know from Analog Brothers. Yeah. That's the only time I've ever heard them though. I never heard anything solo.
He used to be in a group called Sick Medics from Oregon, and then he went solo, and then he was part of another group. I'm trying to think of another group that he was with, but he's from that like. He's kind of loosely affiliated with like Old Dominion and those guys.
Oh, I'm a big fan of them too.
Yeah, because he was in a group with one of the guys from the Old Dominion crew. I'll send you some stuff from him too. I'll send you eat.com and I'll send you some stuff from him too. Okay, so this next person, again, another person that moved from Chicago here to Orlando, where I'm from, Central Florida. And I remember in the late 90s, I used to go to downtown Orlando. And this is like, Florida wasn't really known for hip hop back then. Yeah. But we used to walk by this huge cypher all the time with mad MCs, man. And they were really dope. Like a lot of really dope artists came out of Florida. But he was one of them. Swamburger.
That's so perfect. I knew it was going to be Swam. I knew it. I'm like, in terms of all the connections.
Yeah.
My Swam story is crazy.
Okay. Hey, go for it, bro.
I'm trying to think of the best way to tell this story. Okay, I'm gonna tell it kind of backwards. So Scribble Jam, as it started to grow, we started doing I started kind of doing a regional Scribble Jam events where we do the battles and we would do regional battles, and that would be a way to get. It was just getting so hard to pick MCs for an MC battle. I wanted to get the best of the best. And so I thought just doing these regional battles would give more cities more of an opportunity to get some of their best represented. So I started doing these battles. And I would go to the ones where I could, but I would even have people host their own and just give me the results. So I ended up doing, I think 2007 in Orlando Scribble Jam. Orlando. So I came out there and we did production battle, MC battle. And so I had already had a couple of Swam 12 inches. Was that the 9 to 5 one was called 9 to 5? 12-inch, like 2001 or something like that.
Well, he released, I believe, one solo album, and then he had a group called the Soliloquists of Sound.
Right. So like this is before her Soliloquist. He did like a solo project, a 12-inch that I had. A couple of things I knew about him. And so so here we were in Orlando at the Scribble Jam event, and we're talking because like Optics is there. Optics, I believe, that's the one where Optics wins the regional battle and then goes on to win the main producer battle at Scribble Jam 2. But anyway, so me and Swam are talking, and he just makes a comment about, it's been a long time since I talked to you in Chicago. And I'm just like, what? What are you talking about? I never talked to this guy in Chicago. And I just play along. I was like, I met so many people. I must have just met him. He probably came to time travel.
Right.
Like I said, one of those times where he just came. I didn't focus. I probably said hello. And to him, we met. And to me, we didn't meet. Because I didn't remember it. That's what I thought. And then I went home. I don't know how long it took me. But finally, I was like, oh my God. So, Anacron from LA, part of like the Project Blow, Good Life thing. He's one of the people that when he got a copy of Caught in the Middle magazine, he wrote a letter talking about how much he appreciated the magazine, how he was involved with the Good Life scene, and how he would love to write for us. And so I was looking for more writers. Because like in those first 2 issues, I'm like writing a lot of that magazine under different names.
If I would have known, I would have fucking wrote for your magazine, bro. Damn.
Oh man, I wrote under like 6 or 7 different names in Caught in the Middle, like Agent something. I can't remember what it was. Like I had all these different names, like Kevin Beacham, but like whatever. So I was looking for more. I was trying to diversify with more writers. So we got Anacron to write, and so Anacron started sending me tapes of like the West Coast Underground, including his own demos. His group Peanut Gallery. He eventually ended up moving to Chicago, and we connected to do stuff. And he would bring down his crew, the Peanut Gallery. One night he came down with this ensemble of MCs that were all dope, and they all just kicked it. And there was one guy who stood out, and I was like, okay, this be beyond Anacron. And this person came back on their own one time and gave me a demo on their own, a song called Solo Spirited, really dope demo. Gave me the demo. Never saw him again. That was those 2 times. They disappeared. I played that demo for a long time. I still, decades later, listen to that demo pretty regularly. That was Swam. I had no idea that was the same person. His name was Swam, but the Swam. I never made the connection. Right. And it was so. I'm like, when I realized it, I was like, oh, it's the exact same person. But like 5 years had passed or more. So it's like, right. I just didn't make that connection. Like when I realized that was like, that's that Swam. So yeah, me and him go back to that.
Hello. Oh man. Did I lose you again? You there, Kevin? You care, Kevin?
So yeah, Swamp. But that was just so funny that it was just so funny that I didn't know that was him all that time.
All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up with this one crew. Okay. They're kind of modern, and I know that a couple of MCs from this crew kind of left and did their own thing, but not a lot of people really know them. The Tomorrow Kings.
Oh yeah. I'm a big fan. So. Once again, connecting Tomorrow Kings, the first MC I remember. The first, if not the first MC I met was Sketch.
He's dope.
Because once again, Chicago prelims. I did it in Chicago. This is probably around that same time, 2007, 2008. I'm thinking we did Chicago prelims at the Abbey Pub, I believe, and Sketch was one of the MCs. And when I just heard his voice and his presence, and it's like he was just so intimidating. Like I saw like MCs flinch when he got in there. People were like, "Okay, calm down." I had to be like, "Wait, is this gonna get like?" Because he was so intense.
Right.
I loved it, but like he would also like not have violence explode at your event. So like, but like, so I was like on like, I'm on edge. Like, okay, is he good? Oh, okay, he's just intense. He's just an intense person. But no, so like I remember like being like, okay, like he won the, that prelim battle, so he was in Scribble. So I was a fan of Sketch from that day, and then like so then years later, I learned about the Tomorrow King stuff and some other MCs, and like they came to town to Minneapolis when they did that first record, and they did an in store at Fifth Element, and when I saw them, they're explosive, man. It's
really, they are. They're like a Wu-Tang, like on adrenaline. Like,
super dope, like super ill. Like, I'm actually trying to do a song with Sketch right now.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. All right, Kev. So before we wrap this up, let everybody know, like, what do you got new? Like, are you writing a book? You got new music coming out? Like, I'm asking a dumb question because you got your hands in so many different cookie jars. But just give us an idea of what's going to come in the present and in the future for Kevin Beacham.
Thank you. One of the things I'm trying to do now that I kind of realize how much being creative is important to me is I'm trying to find a way to like make all my passions fit into one thing. And so I've been slowly like this, practicing more than I ever had at all this stuff, like spending more hours practicing DJing, MCing, writing, improv, production, and also just like the educational side. I want to be able to do something where I can like maybe like do like seminars or perform or just like online classes where I can do all that. I can DJ, go into a verse, talk about the history of art, like this. How can I make it all one thing? So I've been working on that, and then part of like that being built is like I have the book Microphone Mathematics. This is like the evolution of songwriting. That's in the editing phase right now. I'm looking for a home for that. I got some options for that. I got my podcast, Stories About Songs. Season 1 came out a while ago. Season 2 was recorded and now just being edited and locking in the distribution deal for that, to make it a bigger platform. So Stories About Songs, Season 2. And then music-wise, my artist name is 7 times 3 equals 21, all no spaces. And there's a long history about that. But I released an album this year already called A Fair Use, which was like my first like self-produced solo record ever, I guess. Yeah.
That's the cover behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that cover. I worked in the school system for 4 years. Yeah. Primarily in an elementary school. And when I saw that art, it just reminded me of the art I used to see every day at the school I worked at. So it's dope. It's dope.
Well, that was the idea. It was like, it's like, the whole idea was like, A Fair Use is talking about like growing up, dealing with anxiety and depression. And so right. like as a kid. So like, and it's like, yeah, it's a whole connection to what the artwork and all that. But so that album's out, and I already have like 3 more projects ready to come out, pretty much, my part. So like, I'm dropping the project in just a few weeks, so that might be too late for this, but like called Songbird, The Sound Unseen, EP, the self-produced. The record I mentioned earlier, Stream of Competence, all over EC Illa Beats, that has some Chicago features on it.
That's
with dope artwork by the legendary Trickster. So the artwork is ill. And then I got this project called Circa 89 to 91. And that is a record, basically the solo record I should have made post Wild Style. It's me like going back and thinking like as a time traveler, if I could go back in time and make that record, what would it sound like now? And so I made that record. And that one's done too. And that one's dope because it has Jay Zone playing all the drums.
That's dope, bro.
So that's that one's done. I just got the drums from Jay Zone a few weeks ago. I'm just got to finish that production stuff, adding the drums. But yeah, so I got all those 3 projects pretty much done. I'm waiting for a few features and some art. But yeah, so it's a whole bunch of music, man. And I've already started writing like 3 other projects. Like I'm just in a very creative zone right now, and I love it. So
yeah, just ride that wave, man. Well, Kev, thank you so much. You don't know me, but I got mad love for you, bro. Because
I appreciate it, man. I know you now.
Direction, man. Well, you know me now. It's gonna be hard for you to lose me, so you're in trouble, brother. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, brother. And thank you so much for the time. I know that you could have been doing something else, but you came on this little show, and maybe hopefully it'll blow up one day, and you know, and it'll get you more exposure. But send me when you get a chance. Send me like all the links to everything so I could put it into the description on my YouTube channel, and just keep doing what you're doing, bro. Don't change, please.
My man, I really appreciate that, and I also appreciate your purple wall, man. So.
Yeah. That's my son. My son loves purple, so this is, you know, for him. That's my firstborn. So
my favorite color is purple. So that purple,
I know. I saw this shirt.
I picked this shirt very specifically for this. I'm like, I didn't know you had a purple wall. I'm like, oh well, okay.
There you go. Look, connections. Remember, right place, right time, bro.
That's all about, man, for sure. Yeah.
All right, brother. Stay up, my man.
You good? All right.
Peace, brother. All right, everybody. I thought we were done. I guess we're not done. Because when I was naming off a lot of these groups to find out if he had any affiliation with them, there was definitely one group that I saw on a post probably like maybe 6-7 years ago that you had put up, and they were from Texas, and you put up I think it was on your YouTube channel, so it wasn't anything to be downloaded per se. And so I wound up looking them up, and I did find the 2 songs, but I felt like, no, that's not enough. So I kept digging, and I was able to find on some MP3 page, I don't know what it was, but like they had
Reverb Nation, something like that. I think
it might have been Reverb Nation. I found 10 more tracks, and this group is called the Distortionists. Can you give me some info on that?
When we did Caught in the Middle, me and Bird, one of the first demos we got was from the Distortionists from Texas. I was blown away by this group. Like, you know, like it was like handful of MCs. All of them were dope. The production was dope. Yeah. And so I used to play that record, that tape, a lot on Time Travel, like heavily. And it's one of those things that, like, the numbers on the tape, I called it at least once. We talked, but I was getting so much music at the time that I didn't stay in touch, you know, like, and then like, you know, then the number didn't work anymore. I finally tried it again. The number didn't work. And I was like, oh, I wonder what happened to Distortionist. And then I just lost touch. But because, and this is a good example for people like yourself and anyone that wants to kind of get into this, is put things out there. A lot of the things of how I've connected is just because I just wrote stories or social posts and shared my thoughts, and the groups have found me.
That's dope.
Quasar from Distortionist found me. Him and Massive, 2 of the members of the group, found me because of something I wrote on fifthelementonline.com when I had a blog there. And they reached out, and so we connected. And I actually, when I went to South by Southwest, like my second time, I connected with Quasar to talk about it. He was involved in Erykah Badu early on. He was one of Erykah Badu's early producers.
No fucking way, man.
Like when Erykah Badu first played like South by South, he was telling me, like, you know, like it's like first time Erykah Badu. I think he said the first time Erykah Badu played South by Southwest, I was like her DJ or something like that. Like I was like, and I was producing like some of her stuff or something like that.
That's dope, man.
And I think I've learned that connection because there's a book about, I don't know if it's an Erykah Badu. I want to, I'm pretty sure, like, I think it's Distortionist, but it's tricky because Kinetic Order. I talked about Kinetic Order.
Yes.
Rob Free from Kinetic Order is Erykah Badu's cousin. He's also, they make music together. Like he's like, like a lot of what he posts about is touring with Erykah Badu. So, and he's originally from Texas, like Distortionist. So I might be confusing one thing, but there's like I remember every once in a while I just Google these groups like Kinetic Order, Distortionist.
Right.
I know I was Googling Kinetic Order, and one of the only things that comes up besides things that I've written is in a book about Erykah Badu that mentions Kinetic Order. I was like, I never knew why. I learned later that they were related. But there's like if you can Google Kinetic Order, in your first few pages of results, you're going to find it connects to Erykah Badu in the book.
Wow. Okay, so the book's about Erykah Badu, and it has Kinetic Order in it.
Yeah, I think it's like an Erykah Badu biography or something like that. I can't remember. It's a random search I did 10 years ago or something like. Yeah, I don't remember. I remember but I think in that same book they also mentioned Quasar. Because I just read it. What you know how online you can read part of the book. You know when you Google it. Is like look inside the book. So I was able to read a few pages, and I think they mentioned Kinetic Order and Quasar in that book. But yeah, that's how those things connect.
That's crazy. And then there's a Quasar in Chicago, right? A Quasar,
Yeah,
MC and Quasar, right? Yeah. Outer Limits, yes.
Yeah, Outer Limits. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's how that a whole crazy story.
He's dope too. It's another dope MC right there.
I
All right,
got,
my man.
I got anything you mentioned, Mama. How I have a crazy story. Okay.
I know, brother. I know.
But now you got me curious. I got to make sure what you have from Distortionist, because what if you have something I don't have? So that you mentioned, I got 6 songs, so I got to see what you got. So yeah.
Yeah, I got some song. I got a song from them that has a female in it.
Yeah, I don't think I have them. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
We definitely gonna talk.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna talk, brother. So all right, so for real, man. Thank you for everything, man. Yeah. And I'm gonna let you go, man, and we'll stay in touch, man, because I know you're gonna release more material, and I'm gonna want to talk to you about that. And if you have time in your schedule to talk to a dude like me, I would love to do that. Okay.
I will. Yeah. Man.
All right, brother. Stay up and stay blessed, man.
Yeah, you too, man. All right.
All right, man. Peace, brother.